Okay, we'll turn them on and,
I
okay,
guess it records when we.
gotcha, okay. Okay, so our meeting today is going to be administered with the help of the Midwest Council of Government representative? Mid-Willamette, sorry, not Midwest, yeah. And any more introductions that we need to do, staff, before we jump in? Okay.
We got nameplates for you, Scott, in case you don't know.
Just in case I need one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I forget my name all.
We
Well-
do too. That's why we keep doing this.
I'll go ahead and just let you kind of introduce yourself and then just say what your role is and how this should look tonight for us in this meeting.
Okay. Is it okay if I sit? All right.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect.
My name is Scott Danson. I serve as the Executive Director for the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments. The Park District here has been a member of the COG almost since the beginning, I believe. We became a COG in '67, and you guys were, as a district, part of us in those early years. We're made up of Yamhill, Polk, Marion County, the cities and towns in each of those counties and special districts as well. So we have about 44 members, and we're an ORS 190 for those who don't know what the is. Lisa's actually served on the board and was here when I came on board about 2.5 years ago. She was your representative on the board. We actually have a seat on the COG, have for a long time. Newburgh has a seat. Then the small towns of Danville County will have one person. That's Linda Watkins. The mayor of Carlton serves in the small. So those are the voting members of the COG. Our job is to be a neutral convener for our membership and to carry out services. Some of the things that we do, just to give you a little background, we do a lot of land use planning for a lot of the membership. Probably about 30 of our jurisdictions use us for various levels of planning expertise or technical expertise in areas of local government administration. So we'll do those kinds of service work for them. We run the MWAC is the ACT, or the Rural Transportation System in Oregon. We staff that with the Oregon Transportation Board, so we have representatives in Yamhill County, Polk, and Marion that are part of that. And then we run the federal dollars of transportation dollars through something called SCATS, which is the NPO and Salem Plaza. So our staff that staffs both of those are transportation planners, modelers, data folks, GIS folks, and transportation planners in general. And then we also do the business lending program in our particular COG. We do that. So we have lent dollars for a very long time, about 30, 35 years, probably about 38 million in the region lending. Our dollars are usually dollars that come from Economic Development Administration, Small Business Administration, used to be Farmers Home, City of Newburgh, many years ago put money in, and then we worked with them with banks to get small capital dollars out. So that's a little bit of what we do. We do really anything that our membership needs and wants, and some of the other areas we cover are something like what I'm doing here this evening. We do facilitation programs where we'll facilitate goal setting, maybe help folks work through things like that. We also do recruitment services for chief executive officers in the region. I've been here for about 2.5 years, and we've done about 7 of them since I've been here. So we know what a couple of them. So we do those kinds of things for folks. We're out of Salem. That's where our main office is, right next to the courthouse downtown, and the county office building. Place right there by the Elsinore Theater. That's a little bit about what the COG is. As I said, you folks have been members for a very long time. The COG has actually been around since '57. So it's funny when you hear about growth and you hear about those things now, and you hear about housing issues and growing and taxes and all these things. That's what they were screaming about in 1957 too. And so it felt like they needed a neutral body that could bring folks together again to work out solutions to growth and development and those kinds of things. Oregon has unique land use laws. It has a unique budget law compared to other areas in the United States. And so we assist a lot of our community. So I'm going to stop there for a second. Any questions about who we are? Anything I can answer?
Appreciate you coming.
You're welcome. Glad to be here. As for myself personally, I'm a recovering city manager. I did that for 30 years. But before that, when I was 15 years old, I grew up in Manassas, Virginia, outside of Washington, D.C. I started as a park caretaker for the Prince William County Park. It, to this day, was the best job I ever had in my entire life because I had my name on the shirt. I could smoke cigarettes, and I was outside all day. It was awesome for a 15-year-old kid. But my job was to open the park up, call it in, and then come back in after school and clean up the bathrooms, make sure all the trash cans were changed, and help with the Little League. We had ball fields, we had soccer fields, we had basketball courts, tennis courts, we had picnic areas, playground areas. My job was just to kind of maintain and keep it up. So that was my very first foray into a job as a young person, but also just in public service. And I stayed with that for a pretty long time, and then got somehow bamboozled into being a city manager. So at the age of 23, so I'm still not sure how that happened. I was going to be an economist with the feds, and that just didn't work out. So I became city manager instead. But it's been good to me, and it's been good. It's been a good public service career. I've enjoyed it. It's taken me a lot of nice places around the Carolinas and out here to Oregon. It's lovely and a very nice place. We're running away from our children. We successfully got 3,000 miles, and they still know our phone number and our email and our text, and apparently our bank account. So we haven't quite figured out how to set this. But so that's a little bit about me. So one of the things that we do is facilitation. So I sent in advance some things that we'll try to cover tonight. But the idea is to stop and ask where you are, where is it that you think you want to get to, what is it that you hope to accomplish. Let's have that conversation, kind of more of a free-form conversation first. Let's kind of hear what maybe people's expectations are, and we'll try to structure it from there and see what we can work towards. A lot of times when we do this, the last goal-setting process that we did, and they're all different. Every organization wants something a little different because they're somewhere different in their process as an organization. Some of them are very organized, they have strategic plans, and all they want to do is just kind of look at things and say, yeah, I want to reaffirm that that's the direction we're going in. Can we have a process that does that? Sure. Some want lots of public engagement. How do you get that? Focus groups, surveys, things like that, to help them focus in, are we going in the right direction? Are we doing the things that we need to be doing? What are we missing in the process? And then some just want to make sure they can get organized around some simple ideas about how the board wants to operate, its relationship with staff, how do you want that to work. So I'm giving you those examples because there's lots of ways to get from here to there. And so what your expectations are important to kind of understand up front. I'm going to stop there and see if there's any questions, comments, concerns from anybody.
Well, I think one of the things we want to do as a board with this work session is just have a discussion about what our priorities are, so we can determine where we're at as a board, what direction we're going. I think that's also what staff kind of wants to know, where we're going, what our plan is. I kind of did some thinking and took some notes. I think we have projects that are in the works, projects that are kind of your current budget, current year, potentially next year, which is normal, some are delayed. And then there's projects that are more long-term, seems like the 5 to 10 year kind of projects. And then there's, I think also, I'd almost call it the wish list projects. Like what other projects are we looking at in this list that we may want to prioritize, or what things that maybe are not on this list do we need to get on this list? And I think that's kind of the discussion. I don't know. I'll open it up for anyone else who'd like to say what they want from this meeting, but I think that's kind of what I was seeing as the main driver of this work session.
Yeah, as long as what we're doing is also taking into consideration where staff is currently on existing projects and what that trajectory is gonna look like, because we don't wanna I don't think we wanna get in the middle of whatever they're doing and put that wrench in there, so.
Yeah.
We may want to do that. When we hear about what the projects are, we may want to do that, because keep in mind, many of these projects that may be underway, we're done with an entire different board, and we were elected to make changes, and I intend to be part of that change. So it doesn't mean that everything or anything is going to change, but I'd like to know exactly what is involved. And then we're going to evaluate each of those projects and decide which direction we're going to go, whether we're going to modify those or whether we're going to cancel them altogether.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll be able to do that all tonight, but I do want to hear from the staff and why things are where they are. And I also feel it's important to look at our projects that have other funding involved with them, whether it be through donations or whether it be through grants. I think that to come up and say, I don't want that, and to lose, let's say, a grant for $1 million as part of that, that's real important to me from, a taxpayer's funding. So I think that needs to, in here, we say things cost a certain amount of money, but how much of that money that's in that is offset already by money that's coming in from, grants or state or OPRD or whoever. So that's important to me. So people know that before we go, oh, that's something we may not want to do. I want to know how much money we would lose. That's free money to us. So, or to the taxpayers.
Yeah, and I'd also like to make sure that we're getting input from community members. Us just coming in and saying, no, we're not gonna do this anymore.
We're not doing
If
that at
you
this
don't
meeting.
like it, is not really the
Right.
right way to do it either. So as long as we're gonna include community voices in this conversation at some point, that's fine.
This meeting, we're not going to be deciding what we're doing one way or the other.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that this is a work session, so we're not making any decisions. That's not part of this. This is truly, in some ways, a visioning session, I think.
A discovery.
And then a discussion with staff and with the board to make sure that we know where we're heading and what the costs are. And I really think it's important that we have our immediate plan, our plan for the near future, and then something in the 5 to 10 or 10 to 15 year plans. Because there's a lot of, when you look at this project costs $130 million, right? But as you said, a lot of that might be grant money. Some of that I'm seeing here is, school district matching. You have all kinds of different ways of funding these things, whether it be SDCs or other things. And so I think we've got to really get our priorities kind of figured out as best we can. Did you have any?
Can we start with that, with the grants? Can we go through and just star the ones that have grant money attached?
So this is where I'll throw it back to you. So you've kind of heard everyone on the board speak. Would you have a recommendation on how we would have an orderly way of presenting that?
Before you do that, I don't know, you and I both have this piece of paper, but do we have this for all the staff?
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
All the staff, all the board, sorry, man. I'm still-
Do we have more of these? Okay.
I think that'd be good
just
for them to
run
look at, because
Thanks, Casey.
Okay. So I'll throw it at you. I think you now kind of have heard a little bit from the board. Do you have any thoughts on the best way to organize that
Mr. Chair,
discussion?
Before I
Yes.
get to that, Gail, is there anything else you want to add or anything else? I just want to make sure your voice is heard. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to this list that everyone did?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, so starting there, obviously I did some background research on things for you folks, where your authority comes from. Authority is by state statute. What your budget looks like, what your capital is, and I've got it broken down into several things. Your mission statement, which includes your district projects and projects underway list. Those are two things in there, as well as you have a mission statement, a vision, and some strategic goals. That's what I see in your current product and in your budget. You have a master plan. I'm going to assume that was adopted by the board. Was it? Your master plan was adopted. Okay. And then you have
Let me correct something.
yes, please.
By the previous boards.
Right.
But, well,
Not-
while I understand that
Yeah,
previous
yeah.
boards, to me, it's the same board.
Yeah.
It's still the board.
Correct.
You have a budget, and as you move through it as a board, the board does have a legally adopted budget, and there is a process to change that. That's one thing. You have obligations and opportunities as a board to address each of those things. One thing I think we want to be clear about is what your expectations may be of this evening. I don't think you're going to, right now you're talking about going through lists of things, right? And kind of going through that. Is staff prepared to discuss that? Just yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can answer questions about things tonight. So we could go through the list and kind of go through your goals, objectives, your mission statement, and that kind of thing. My big question for you folks is going to be, what's your expectation for this evening? Or do you think this is a little bit longer process where you set some agreeables this evening about what you want to get done as a group? Then we find out how to get you that information so that you can begin that discussion about how you want to get through all of this, and then give you kind of a board game plan to get from here to there. Does that sound fair? I mean, let me read back to you what you all said. Priorities, where we're going, expectations, where staff with current projects, project-driven, source of funds for projects, public input, visionary discussion. So that's a lot to do in one setting. Is that a fair enough statement with everybody?
Right, so if we start out, it's a process, and if we have to meet again, we shall.
Yes.
So that's kind of where we're at. So,
Okay, I just want to make ssure that the expectation is you're not going to walk away this evening with the vision, mission statement, and set of priorities tonight.
This was truly just a learning session, so we would know where we're at, because us, at least two of us, are mostly in the dark. I mean, we know about many of the projects, but we'd like to know more.
Yeah, I think it might help us in terms of projects is determining or starting with the ones that are currently budgeted that we're currently working on. I think that's important to start with those. And then we can move to other projects. We know to some degree where we're at on some of them, but not all of them. And then I think in going through that, it kind of would have to be a list in a certain sense, because we need to know, okay, what project has a grant with a time frame for completion with matching money, or the I know Rennie Field is one where we have a grant and we have school district money, right? So there's more time frame on that maybe than something else. So I think going through these projects, and then we can start looking at, okay, is the Rennie Field project, is that in the same level of urgency as I'll just pick something, 219 campground, right? I mean, I don't think it is, but it might be good for us to like have that discussion and figure out what our priorities are.
So how many of y'all have read the budget? Okay. That memorized?
No,
Oh, for
he might.
I can guarantee you, there's too many numbers.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a language because it represents some things. And your budget is broken down to your operating, your capital, and your capital and or your debt. And they can be, your debt service can be for past expenditures already and you're paying for them. I assume that's what you guys are doing. Capitalization about what you're going to spend this year on capital, whether it's short-term capital, mid-term capital, long-term capital, the money to be converted to debt. Fees, how you bring your revenue in and how your expenditures go out, right? So that's your budget. You have ground up. I'm going to take a real nice big shot at the dark here, but about a $20 million budget, $20.5 million budget. And of that, your capital projects budgeted in that fund is zero right now. Is that right?
No.
No.
In your debt service fund, you got about 1.4 million. Now that's out of SDC. And you've got a loan service fund of about 34,000.
Oh, you're going by funds.
I'm going by funds.
Okay,
And you have monies that are in your SDC funds for projects. That's something that funds some source of them. You have a maintenance fund, you have a loan service fund, you have a debt service fund, and then you
Is
have-
this, excuse me, is there's, do we have this printout that we're all looking at here?
it's in the budget. You have a general fund.
That's why I asked if you had read the budget. I'm asking what you have in front of you right now. I didn't come in prepared to give you anything tonight,
Right.
but that's where your information's in there, and that's the first place I would use. That's the first place I would. You do have a mission statement. So your mission statement is also in your budget and part of the adopted thing to include your list of current and proposed projects. Is that correct? So you have a list of 7 projects underway. Is that correct? That's what Trails, Bypass, Brandon Fields, Sander State
Correct.
Park, Riley Park, Crabtree Park, Cultural Center, 219 Campground, right? Those are underway. And then you have project costs for 12 things. That's golf course, trail, you've got a list of those things. Have they been approved and are they being financed right now? Or are they part of your capital budget and what's the status of those?
Those are in various states.
So they're in various states of planning and or.
Correct.
Okay, all right. So that's the where are they list, right? You have 7 things underway, am I correct in that? And then you have a list of 12 things that are in various sorts of study and or development. Okay. So that's something you folks want to do. Okay. And then you have a mission statement, and you have a vision, and you have some strategic goals. Usually what we do is we start with this mission, vision, and statement, and just see if you want to reaffirm that. Has everyone here read that? Should be a one-pager. Let me see what you folks are looking at.
I think we're all looking at different things.
That is your mission and vision. That's your mission and vision. Flip the page for me. That's your vision and mission. Vision, let me see what you got on the back there. Good. You've got the list and you've got it. That is what most likely drives your staff when they develop the budget. It is probably where you have the easiest opportunity to have the big discussions at the 30,000-foot view, and then start to drill down into the projects and the budgets. Okay, that's usually where you start. Usually what your staff uses to do that. So one of the things that you're going to want to do And if this is going to be part of that process where we come back and have this conversation, sounds like it's going to be an information meeting tonight, so let's do that. But is you're going to want to look at that and as a board, see where you're at with that. And that's a discussion that we can have. And if you want to change it, or if you want to reaffirm it, you can have, if you want, a public process on that. And public processes can take different forms. You can have a meeting about it, you can have several meetings about it, you can have surveys, you can have focus groups, you can have those, there's a lot of ways to get there. You can host a meeting and say, we're going to work just on our mission, vision, and strategy, and do those things and agree to those things together. And we have a process that we would do with that to get you there. And if you do that and do that in public and adopt that in public, then that drives you. That's what pushes you along. That's also what pushes staff along. Because that's, they want to know where you folks want to go too. They would love to be part of the process, I assume, but they want to know where you want to go. Okay, so those are that's the 30 and 20,000 and 10,000 foot levels. Budget's where you go down, you really drill. Because that's every year, and that's when you try to split it between operating, capital, prioritization of your list of things you want to get done, whether it's operating things that you want to get done, capital that you want to get done, programmatic things that you want to do. 3 probably distinct things in parks. Programmatic, you want to bring on a whole new thing that you haven't thought about before. Pickleball became a big thing, and that, believe it or not, for Parks and Rec districts and for cities and counties, that became a big issue. How do you take old tennis courts and divide them? What about taking off the tennis folks? Are you making the pickleball? That's an example of a programmatic change that has capital effect, operating cost effect, and staffing effects. It just has all 3 of them. And rules, right? How many times have they come in and said, they're loud? That seems to be the thing you hear on TV, that pickleball's loud. So that's an example of where you guys then are really diving into policy, what you really want to do, what you really want to spend money on, where you really want to get to, right? That's an example of what you do. And your budget's a great time to do that, but one of the things you want to do is probably have your conversation about where you want to go before the budget process starts, so that the staff is then knows what to put into the budget and come back with to the board, so the board can say, or give me more information, or no, I don't want to go in that direction. That's your prerogative. That's really where your big prerogative is. So setting this vision, the mission statement, either reaffirming what you have, adding, subtracting from it, that's a board decision. If you're comfortable with that, then your actions after that are guided by that. Your policies, your programs you want to deliver, the projects that you want to prioritize. Okay, that's a strategic planning process in general. Now, some of this other stuff about going around list, we can do that tonight. We can have an information conversation tonight about where our projects currently, so you get a better understanding. That's that list on your back. Where are you with the budget? Are we programmatically moving in that direction? Are the revenues coming in so that we can meet the programmatic needs? So it's the second question you're going to have. And the third one is, what about these longer term ones? Tell me about the status of this. And all I would suggest to Don and staff, if staff can answer some of those questions tonight, that'd be great. If they can't, it'd be good if you said, I'd have to get more information for you to bring back. Fair enough? Is that fair enough for the board?
Yeah, I think, and I'm going to speak for myself, and then I'll let everyone else have their 2 cents. I don't have any particular issue with the mission statement or the vision, and I don't think it would be a good use of our time. This is just my opinion, going over changing wording in there. I think what we're really focused on would be the second part of this, which would be the strategic goals. I think there's a list of different projects in here, different aspirational projects or current projects, you know, as we've gone over. Some of them were already started, some of them we haven't. And I really think what we need to do is potentially move into a discussion of that. And I know it's, you know, I don't know how to do it other than a list. The only other idea I have is I think everyone on this board should be able to state what their vision is, what projects they believe are important, and why, because I think that's kind of what makes up the strategic goals section. And then perhaps we can start having discussion based on that, along with what we're currently budgeted, what we're currently doing. And I think that's where we can probably get to a point where we're touching on strategic goals or planning.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I have no interest in wasting a whole bunch of time on our vision. Vision is fine. I think it's time, let's get down to the meat of this meeting. Let's start discussing these projects so that we are informed as to where the dollars are coming from, what the plan is, what's the timing looking like, and where are we at in the project? Where are we at as far as the timeline? Have we started these? Are we working on them? One thing I would like to do differently is I've gone to a lot of meetings, and I know we're not going to do this in this meeting, but one thing I'd really like to do, I'd like to know dates. I'd like to set dates. I want to hold people accountable for getting things done, okay? We have got a lot of projects that have been in the works for years, and I think it's time that we start doing something with these projects. Or let's get rid of them. Let's do one or the other. Let's start the projects. We've been given properties. It is time for us to start doing something. So we have capital, and it's time to either do it or don't.
The other
Yeah.
board members?
I think that your strategic goals are based on your vision and your mission. You start with your mission, you get your vision, you come to your strategic goals, which is how I believe this was established in the first place. So the strategic goals are directly related to those things, right? Which are your projects. You're wanting, there's a fine line, I think, between saying these are our priorities and this is what we want to see happen, and directing staff. And we have to be very careful that we're not doing that. There's a lot of complexity that goes into the development of any one of these parks that we're going to do, or any of the programs that are there. And there are a multitude and a variety of ways that there can be wrenches thrown into whatever process you have. As you say, land use in Oregon is pretty restrictive, right? So if they're utilizing resources that are not based on what we come in with their general fund or our SDCs, they're going to be longer, right? So if you want to be able to match your money so you have less coming out of the people from here and more from the state or the feds, it's going to take longer. It's just going to take longer. So telling people you have a deadline to get something done, I think it's just a very kind of harsh and maybe unrealistic way to go about it. I think trying to find out what those timelines look like realistically is important to know. If we're going to go ahead and do this project, what does that look like? And what does that time frame, what is your estimate on what that is? Telling them to do it 2 years earlier than they can do it isn't helpful if there's a process that has to go through. So I'm just saying that we need to be listening to whatever staff has to
So
say.
we need some
right?
information. I hear people want to know some things, so let's,
Yes,
in that strategy and on that list, let's put that just aside for a second. But are you reaffirming vision and mission?
I am.
Okay. And you're affirming vision and mission.
And
you were
quickly,
as well.
one point here.
Yes, sir.
So I want to give an example as to why I want to have dates set. We have a community center, which we have children in, okay? Now, from what I understand, we have been working on bids for a year and a half, at least, working on bids to repair a roof on a community center that we have children in. The roof is so rotten that the wood is delaminating on the bottom of the plywood. The gutters have fallen off the roof. I want to know when the heck this is going to be repaired. I don't want to hear about, we're getting quotes, we're getting bids. I want action. That is the reason why I'm saying that I want dates. Okay?
I think that, you,
That's good.
Jim, go ahead.
I think that it's kind of like, those are basically maintenance issues that need to take place. And I think it's easier for those small things, whether it be a roof and so on, we can get some dates on, and we should be able to get dates on those. But when we're looking at these bigger things, like the bypass trail or the campground or the golf course clubhouse, things like that, you can say, I'd like to have the golf course clubhouse built within the next 4 years. Just like if I apply for a grant, they're going to say, you have 2 years to complete this grant. Now you can apply for an extension to that grant. So for those bigger things, I think that you need to look a little farther out because of all the things that Lisa brought up. But for some of these smaller things, whether it be the trails, whether it be what you mentioned, those things, staff should be moving.
So let me go back and ask you a question.
I agree with these.
You agree with that? Okay, you agree with the mission and vision. I'm trying to eliminate some things in the piece of paper so that we can move towards something.
I agree with the mission and vision.
And you agree. Okay.
Yeah.
So if that's affirmed, then you're dealing in strategy. So it sounds like in the strategic end of things, so let me make sure that I understand the strategic end of things. The first goal is to continue to promote and communicate success and mission of the district, right? And then it goes all the way down to continue to develop community programs, right? That's that list of strategy. All right, so if we can affirm that, it sounds like you folks need some information. You'd like to get updates on some things about where they're at. Is that correct?
I think we do get updates regularly at every board meeting. I think more, and maybe I'm speaking for myself here, but I think it's more an overall view of not just where the project is, but what is the anticipated forward motion of, if it's phased, whether it's,
Okay.
waiting on something, whatever that is.
And that's based upon your list that I'm looking at here, the 7 in projects underway, the projects that are, the 12 that are on the list are, what the status of those are. And then it also sounds like there are some O&M questions that the board has as well. Is that correct? Is
What
that
do you,
fair
what do you
enough?
mean by that?
Operation and maintenance, maintaining yearly status of certain things.
Perhaps, but I think, and I'll try to stay this as clear as I can, is there's a list of strategic goals and there's projects. Those basically require prioritization from the policymakers, which are the
Right.
board, right? So that's separate from maintenance or speed at which things are getting done. To me, those need to be separate conversations.
I'm trying to separate between
right.
the two.
But I think the thing that we need to talk about tonight isn't maintenance. I think what we need to talk about is strategic goals, projects. There's a few projects that, for example, I have in mind that I think should be priorities that aren't here, that don't exist here. And I think we need to start talking about the different projects that other people may have in mind. And I think some of these maybe are more long-term things. They're not as urgent. So I think, again, we need to get on the same page with our priorities. What are our current projects, our 1 to 2 year, our 5 to 10, 15 year type projects? And we need to start putting that together now. We can't wait till budget time, because I don't think that's fair to staff. Then staff's, they're working their butt off on something and we say, we don't want you to do that, right? That's what we're trying to avoid. That's why I think we're here tonight. And I think we probably need to get going on that.
So, okay, so let me ask staff, y'all need to respond honestly about this. Are you at a place where we can give information right now in a concise way? Just status of project, funding source, and estimated completion? Can that be done? If not, I need to know that. I didn't ask you any of this stuff in advance, so my apologies up front. So,
The third part of your question would probably be more difficult, but estimated is completion. I think the answer first.
okay, well,
In my opinion, you can't speak for council.
Don, are you fine with that?
Yeah,
So let's have a discussion about first, the project's underway. Let's get a status report about where we are, estimated cost and estimated completion date, and where the funding source is coming from. That might be a valuable piece of information.
Yep.
To share with folks. And I will tell you this, budgets can be complicated to go through sometimes, I get that. But you do have a lot of information here, and it might be that some of the work that needs to get done is if the council has a desire to know some of these things. Let's say tonight, you're not on the hook for exactness. Okay?
Yeah, that's not what we're requiring.
Yeah, let's
at all.
let's be
No.
very clear about it. Let's not do that to the staff tonight.
No.
Because I don't think you're prepared. I didn't ask them that in advance. Don, I don't think you asked them that in advance, so I don't want to do that. But what we can do is get a good understanding about what's going on in that list, and then we can talk about the list up top about where things are. So that'll be your status of where things are. Yes, sir.
You know, one thing that I was hoping that we would get out of this meeting is I wanted to know, what was Lisa Rogers' most important goals? What are the most important things you would like to have done? Same thing with Gail, Matt, Jim, and myself. And then figure out where we have crossover so we can figure out what should be the priority. That's what I was hoping for. That's the reason why I was hoping we were going to have this meeting.
Right, and I think we start with projects underway where we're at, and then I will request that we have a time where each of us say, hey, this is what I think is the most important. And I think we need to be able to have that discussion as a board as well.
So let's, you've affirmed your mission and your value set and your goal. Let's get some information first and see if it's complete. Let's have that conversation first, see where it's at. And then if what you'd like to do is then sit and have a conversation about where things are compared to the information you now have, it may be that they need to follow up and give you more information than they have for this evening. I wouldn't make shots in the dark with limited information. I would try to request to make sure that we give you consistent information and then have a conversation. And then I'm happy to facilitate that discussion about where things are. The other thing I'd like to be able to do, though, and I think this would help you folks, is would like to be able to have a conversation with staff at some point in time and talk about these things and get more understanding of it, because I don't know them. And get more familiar, make sure I'm understanding where things are so that you folks are really looking at good stuff. And then you can have a really constructive conversation. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah.
You're okay with that? So we're gonna proceed like that?
Yep.
So why don't we turn over some time, Dawn, if it's okay? Like to talk about the projects underway and give kind of an understanding and a status report of where they're at.
we'll just go down the list.
Okay, now, again, what did I ask for then? Estimated cost and an estimated time, and where's the source of revenue?
Right.
So just say source of revenue, and then if it's a grant plus dollars, local dollars, or it's a grant and SDCs, or it's all SDC, or it's out of your yearly operating, just tell me where those sources are coming from, if you know where. Does that sound fair?
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to, Kat, we're recording this? We are, okay. I'm gonna try to pay attention as we go along and scribble the best I can.
I'm taking notes as well.
You're taking notes as well, okay, all right. You guys ready?
Yep.
Y'all ready? All right, so who's first? Don, it's your show here.
Yeah, the trail bypass is phase one. We put in the budget, when we did the budget, we wasn't sure of the amount. We normally try to be not conservative, but liberal with the budget. We budgeted 2.8, and I believe it's 2.6, 43,900, correct? Of that, ODOT will put in 1.8 million. We are responsible for the rest.
And the rest is 2.6 minus 1.8 million, so it's the balance.
Right.
Reckon that.
About 850.
And the funds was budgeted to come out of the general fund, but they could come out of the SDC fund. So they could come out of either fund.
And you say that's in phase one.
That's correct.
Can you be more specific about what phase one means?
Phase one is from the pathway going from Fred Meyers to River Street.
I think
That's
probably what I mean more that design, construction. I'm looking probably that way. Is
Yeah.
it in design, is it design being completed?
that's correct. They
Design is at close to 90%.
Yeah.
Does phase one include the bridge?
Yep,
Okay, and the bridge is the largest
that's correct.
piece of
That's
that
where most of
fund.
the cost is,
Right.
because we have been working on this project for many years. Matter of fact, we started when they did the Springbrook deal. These projects come together and they take a lot of time. So we have to let ODOT as well as the city of Newburgh know about the project, because it involves them as well. So this is a long time project.
But
We've been working on it for a long time.
just to clarify though, the project, the money that we're spending on construction is not going from Fred Meyer to,
Most-
across it's basically the bridge and connecting to the street. The other part's already completed by
That's-
ODOT a long
that's
time ago. So I
correct.
just want to clarify for folks that are listening that it's not
But
all the way to Fred Meyer.
ODOT looks at it going from Fred Meyers to there, even though it's been completed. That's what the end result that we have to do.
So I just want to clarify that point, just to make sure I understand. There's been other parts of this project completed already?
That's correct.
So when you said phase one, I'm assuming that there's other phases that haven't made it, but there are other things that are completed. When you say phase one, it's in design, completion, 90% design. Funding is 1.8, ODOT 0.8, general fund and or SDCs.
Correct.
All right.
Gail?
What are the
Sure.
time constraints of the $1.8 million? When, do we have deadlines on that?
Yes, that's what the problem is.
October 31st, 2024. And
But
we can
we,
extend that.
we cannot receive that money, will not receive that money until we spend it. In other words, what happens is you have to have the money on hand and you spend it and they reimburse you.
You have to bridge it.
Right. So you have to plan years ahead, because if you plan the project and you don't have the money, you can't do it. And that happens in many instances, and we've always avoided that. We have to have the money on hand. So we build up some ending balance, and we told the board that we were building the ending balances, and why we were building the ending balances, because we had to have the money on deal to do the project. Now, we will put in next year's budget, or the year after that, the money that comes in, which will be listed under grants. And we'll show that money coming back from the state.
You'll mark it as a receivable. then,
Right.
But your estimated, to go back to Gail's question, your estimated completion time is October 31st, 2024? Yeah. So that's your end date that it has to be done.
Okay, I'm gonna have to ask a question on that. Is that the hopeful completion time?
hopeful
And
completion.
and the second question is, are there any land use barriers or expected
We don't have any land
issues?
use barriers.
Okay.
We have ODOT that
Yeah.
is exchanged,
Okay.
and that's kind of been sort of the problem.
So there's no private property, there's no rezoning, there's no pending approvals from state, county, city?
Nope.
Okay.
What's the holdup? What are we waiting for at this exact moment, Casey?
ODOT and the interchange.
For the final phase of the bypass? Okay.
When ODOT gets their act together, how fast can we pull the trigger?
Well, they told us certain dates, and they missed those dates. They missed more dates. So
But we're ready to go as much as we can be ready to go.
the contractors are on board. You know, we're trying to figure out, we can't do construction in the Creekway in the wintertime, so we're kind of done this year.
Yeah.
But we actually walked down there about 2 weeks ago and had a look at it and see how far everything works. We're gonna need, you know, pilings driven, we're gonna need beams and all that. It's a 500-foot bridge.
Okay.
So it's a large structure. It's the larger bridges get, the bigger they have to get. Because they have to support themselves.
Do you have what the current, like, estimated decision on the interchange so that you could, like, do you think you would, so you said you can't do it during the winter. So you're looking at what, March, April, when you would start
It's gonna
then?
be started probably.
June. Will you have it completed by October 31st then? Will you lose the grant if?
No,
We can apply
it-
for extension.
It's ODOT. ODOT is
Is
the
the one that's
grant,
causing the- yeah.
is causing, so that's not gonna be a problem.
And
The-
maybe you talk to ODOT, talk to the project manager. Talks to us, and that's nothing that we can do. There's set use problems and other things that get right.
Okay. Well, in the interest of time, I think we have a good idea of that project. We have an ODOT grant, 1.8 million. We get that money back after we've spent it. So that's the reason why it's been budgeted the way it is. So our costs are approximately 800,000 unless it goes over budget. And there's a delay on planning side from ODOT. Okay. Let's go ahead and jump to number 2, Rennie Field project.
We received 750,000 from the state legislature. They granted 750,000 for this project. The first thing I asked was the time limit. There is no time limit according to the state. We can receive the money 3 years from now, 4 years from now, but one thing I know is the price is not going to go down, so move it as fast as we can.
Right.
The problem with moving this, we did meet with some contractors. All right. And we moved the project as fast as we can. We still have to meet with the school board. They have to agree to everything. We wanted at least, we asked for 100-year or 99-year lease. What we settled on, their attorney came back and said, no, you shouldn't do that. But the board has agreed, as well as the superintendent has agreed to go with 50 years, which will give us our money back that we invest in the 50 years is fine with us.
Can you kind of relay to everyone on the board exactly what we would be doing at Rennie Field so everyone
That's
knows?
what we're working on right now.
Do you have an idea?
Well,
We gotta-
the main stuff,
Yeah, the main stuff is the field.
turf field, right?
Turf field.
Okay.
Track, main track,
Just like the high school,
just like the high school.
A new fence to
correct?
replace the one that's,
Yeah, we're
yeah.
gonna have to do some road improvements and.
Yeah.
Other things like that, work in the area, EDA and sidewalks. All that kind of stuff.
So have,
So there's currently a survey being done to provide a legitimate drawing to the school district so that they know exactly what's on the plan. Because if we don't show them exactly what we're gonna do, they won't let us do it.
So you need that for the agreement.
We need that for the agreement, that's been the whole.
That's the holdup, but the holdup is because getting the drawings or the plan
The
is,
survey took a long time.
Okay.
The school district came back to us at the contract. First of all, it said 10 years, it said no, for 100 years, so it was a back and forth for a while. And then school district board changed, you guys all changed, and it is an agreement between the boards that are going to ratify this.
do we have a meeting with the school district superintendent or anything
We
coming
have
up?
talked, yes, that will be done. He's aware of that.
Drawing that's accurate.
Right.
Okay.
Do we have any kind of estimation on when that might happen?
Could be as early as next week.
Okay.
And you said 750 from the state. Would you refresh my memory on what the school board or the school district is chipping in on that?
Well, we're chipping in, so.
You're chipping in
That's-
750,
the
and that's the
legislature money is the
750
That
from
is
the
yeah,
school.
okay.
And that's the 750 from the school, so it's
Right.
part of your general funds or is from the school?
No,
It's-
the legislature money
It's
went
half
to the
of it.
school
Yeah.
district
Given
that
to the
came
school,
through
they're
to
gonna
us,
transfer it
right?
to us.
And so we're expecting the total project to be 1.5 million.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's for the field part. There will be a concession stand with restroom, as well as, we are going to build 2 pickleball courts. We talked about that.
Okay, so just to keep it consistent, your status is what, 90% in design?
Yeah, we've had pre-apps with the city.
Yeah.
It's the agreement with the school district. It's like,
Okay, so it's the school.
There, with the city, there was agreement that we'd have to put in certain sidewalks, and we've eliminated a lot of costs by doing that, getting with them and telling them what our plan is, because they have plans that show what they want, and we're come to an agreement about what we can and can't do. And with the agreement, we can now do what we want to do.
So you would say you're at what percentage, and then, just, again, nobody's being held to exactness here.
yeah, it could, I mean,
And then an estimated date.
Harold did say at one time they could do the budget.
Yeah.
Depends on the weather. And, as soon as the agreement gets signed, I guess we can start. And we'll have drawings to get started.
We could, if it goes like with the school project and he starts on it, probably by July or August, we could be on that, or be able to utilize that. That's my
That's your-
recollection.
So your estimate
Right.
is for August of 24.
Yeah, if everything goes well, but what I've learned with projects is not everything goes well.
Sure.
So I think in the fall,
Okay, so you're at the agreement phase. Right now, that's got to get completed, then you've got construction.
right,
And we did meet with Field Code, and so they said that once that project begins, it's gonna go very quickly.
yeah.
That was
Okay.
the old high school field years and years ago,
Yep.
so
But there's a lot of infrastructure.
Yeah, it's what's underground,
Yeah.
that's the big issue.
But so you have an estimate of time. The current holdup is that the agreement hasn't been signed by both boards. That has to get done. Once that's done, estimate is for by next August, hopefully. We're answering questions.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'm just gonna interject. I'm probably skipping to another part, but this was on my list of probably the number one priority that I see. I've heard a lot of demand for additional fields, soccer fields during spring when it's just a mud pit through June. I think you had mentioned around budget time that you literally cannot have too much turf. It's just the way our weather and our climate is, the strain on spring sports is just unreal. Also, just knowing that the school district is finishing their Edwards School improvement, they're finishing a lot of construction over there, and that Rennie Field area currently with the dilapidated fence is an eyesore, and just it needs to happen. So I think I'm just kind of speaking my mind here, but I think on my list, this is the number one priority for us to get done.
Let me say, standard-wise, we serve a population of roughly 30-some thousand. We will have 4 turf fields in this community. There are very few, if any, other communities our size with that many turf fields, I can assure you.
So we're not with prioritization, let's get information still.
Yep.
I hear you. And so let's hit the next one, Sanders Estate Park.
Yep.
Status, estimated completion, source of fund.
I don't know, it may never be completed, but it'll get started. We have received a grant in June, one from the state parks and one from the land and water conservation. Almost $175,000, $564,000. The state grant and what we contribute to make up the difference, our contribution towards federal grant.
That's the conservation one, that's the
Yeah.
564.
564.
Okay.
So we have 1, 2, 4, 250 for Starwood.
That's phase one.
That's phase 1. That doesn't include the half road improvements that the city of Dundee put the requirement on the park development. There are several stipulations they made that at the cost of the park. We got an estimate on the park cost of 10 million something. So full build up.
You're saying that the city of Dundee has requirements or requests for what they want to be done with the park,
In order for
or
us to bring it to get rid of the construction.
from their land use side, or
Land
for,
use is done.
okay,
Master plan went through
okay.
with conditions. Those conditions add up to about-
Did they want us to pay for it?
We've been in contact with Steve at the city, and there are development funds available. They work with the city council on us for help with that project. Part of that would be the city's project because they need to replace a portion of water line that they didn't replace at one point. From the upper portion of park to post office. Each side of that has been replaced already with a 12-inch line. Currently that runs what's within our property is 6-inch line.
So I have a question, because it sounds like in each of these first 3 projects, we're running into what I'd call a mix of bureaucratic delay, and then a little bit of boards or councils and having kind of different ideas.
You're correct.
Mhm.
But remember, Sanders Park was not in the urban renewal when it was formed. Part of our support to the city was to put Sanders Park in the urban renewal district, so we could receive some funds, because we're giving up funds when it's in an urban renewal area. And the agreement was that they would help us with the road improvements and those type things. So that's how that property got in there. But that was 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years
We're talking
ago.
about this since 2018.
Yeah,
We've had numerous public.
5
meetings.
years, 5 years ago. So this is how projects get going and the length of time that it takes, so.
So I have a question. Is there a process, or would it be helpful to do some sort of a joint meeting between the boards to get on the same page and something like this? Or
Well, I talked with Scott. We talked about bringing in the city of Newburgh, city of Dundee, and the other agencies, which is down the road. I agree with that.
Yeah.
We need to do that. But before we do that, Scott and I talked, and we need to know what we're going to do so that we have a better idea.
I think it's really important that the board know, the new board members understand that a large portion of that property was donated to the Park District, for one. For two, cash donations were given by the same person that donated that property to the Park District to complete the project. Three, we have grants for that project. And four, the person that donated the property is elderly, and I think that we need, as a park district, to honor the funds that have been provided to this park district to build a park for the community and move as fast with the city to solve these issues with urban renewal and infrastructure as soon as possible, so the person that did donate this money can see something come to fruition. I think that's super important for other donors that want to give to our district, that we can complete the project. So that is one of my high projects because of what's been given. And I understand some of the hurdles, I've been there, but we need to jump a little higher on that.
Well said, Jim.
Would agree. We all agree. We're working as fast as we can.
City manager, Dundee.
I know it
Right.
changed, I know that.
It changed, and
They're not so much.
That's just, I just wanted you to know my feelings so the board knows.
So Casey, what are the dollar amounts that have been given beyond these dollars that you've shared with us?
I would have to look that up. I don't know.
Where are those dollars at? Where are they accounted for?
Planning, design, Cornell, Orchard, that's basically survey.
So we've already spent all the dollars that have been given for this project?
There's still money there.
most of the money for this project has been donated by Jan
Right, that's what I understand.
herself. She's
Mhm.
given the money to the foundation. We complete the project, then the foundation transfers the money.
Is that the
to us.
564?
Right.
Okay, so that doesn't show
Okay.
up on your books yet.
That's correct.
Okay.
So that is the 564,000
Right.
that I was
But-
just asking about?
No, that's a.
No. No, that's.
That's a
It's
grant.
different. She
She
gave
has-
another
Right, she gave
500,000 or
500,000.
something like that,
So she gave another
She gave us
500?
the property.
Right.
which is, yeah.
She's also funded all the design, architectural, that stuff, but to the tune of probably another. That's a guess.
I think the other thing that's really important on this particular project is that we don't have a lot of things in Dundee. And, you know, here's a woman who's trying to improve her community and doing everything she possibly can. So I think that I would say this has to be our number one priority. I know that there's gonna be a lot of issues when it comes to dealing with, I've already spoken to a number of people in Dundee and they want all these things, and it's like, well, do you want something, or? So it's a little challenging, but it is really a high priority.
So it sounds like the estimated completion is more about getting this group and Dundee to get together.
It's more, yeah, it is.
Completing phase one
This is
with the
phase
grant.
one. It's not a complete part, but it's a
Right.
start. It's the acreage.
So your objective would be to complete phase one, but start with the meeting with that council this fall?
Right.
I would like to.
Phase
start
two-
construction.
Phase two will be much easier because we've already gone through the zoning. We've done everything. It's just a matter of administrative decision by the city of Dundee, which will be easy because they've already approved their overall plan. So we'll be able to move faster. It's just a matter of how much money we have and where the money is. Jan, my guess is until Jan passes, and even when she passes, there may be money set aside for that park. She's given a lot, and my guess is there'll be more given down the road.
Okay. So getting together with between the boards in the fall so that you can settle matters with Dundee on phase one, which you estimate at about 1.1 million in completion, everybody agreeing,
Yeah.
getting that, and then you would have a better timeline for
We-
construction.
The second thing for the board is we'll probably apply for another grant for phase two. Most grants, they like you to finish the
Phase
one, right, phase one. So we'll finish that, reapply, so there may be about a year there that we're not doing something. So just remember, that's how it works. But the process after that will move much faster because we've jumped through the hoops and we're able to implement it. Then we'll go to phase three. Phase three will be like phase two.
Okay.
So
All right, so we know a status and estimation of completion source.
Mm-hmm.
Riley Park,
Yeah.
master plan.
That's currently being done right now. It's currently under review by some appointed people. Some from the older committee, some from the other, some from various people on both sides.
it's a citizen group.
They've completed 3 concept plans and they're willing to combine pieces with this and that. Hopefully the master plan,
So you have a subcommittee of this board that's doing that?
not this board,
It's an ad hoc citizen
Yeah.
committee.
Okay, and so you say you're at 90–80% of completion on there,
they
on the
said
master plan?
probably January, date.
So January 24, for estimated completion, it's a committee.
That's just for putting the plan together, though.
Yeah,
That's just the point.
and there'll be some cost estimates on roofs and stuff.
And where's the money coming from for that? That's already in your budget?
Yes.
It's already,
So it's,
How much did we budget for that for this fiscal year?
54,000.
53.
Okay.
okay, so that.
So just the
number's
planning
already-
stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is one of those projects that I would like to bring back to our regular session that we can talk about and discuss where we're going with this plan and future parks, because we know that we want to make sure that our bicyclists have got at least 1 or 2 places in which they can bicycle. Because I believe that we're going to be discussing this particular project.
I think in terms of tonight, there's really nothing else. There's too much up in the air, so we can just move on to Crabtree Park.
You guys good with that? Anything else you want to add? You're good? Okay, so 5 is Crabtree Park. Status, estimated completion, source.
We have a lease with Lisa Park, and there is currently no access, no legal access for our district to get into the park. We've had that lease since 1964, somewhere way back.
The county owns the
County
park.
owns the park. The winery owns the driveway in up to the winery, but there's no culvert that runs the driveway that's being replaced. So, not knowing that it wasn't the county driveway, I called the county and asked them to check out the culvert. And they came out, it's somebody else to check it. didn't bother pulling blackberries away or anything else. And said everything was fine. There was no bottom culvert. It's within a foot and a half of the road. The top of the road. And it's it's been like that for 3 years. We let H was gonna get an easement from the county, so it went to the county. And somewhere along the way, it got held up. It was 2020 or 18, 20. And it stopped there, so they never agreed with the easement. And it's kind of been a mess. And we've had AKS do a design. We had to talk to OPW, District Passage, because they've routed that creek. And so all kinds of things had to happen in order to get the culvert resized properly to accommodate fish.
And I'm gonna go, where's the source of the funds in this? Are these general funds? These are
But we didn't understand that and correct me if I'm wrong, we do not have a current contract for operation of that park, or do we? We have a current signed
It's not a
contract.
signed contract.
We do not have, we talked with the county, because it was a county park, we asked the county to participate in this. What we thought was a third, and a third would pay.
Who's the other?
The winery.
The winery, yeah. As a matter of fact, that made sense to me. We contacted the county, and of course, they have no funds, no money, and they said no, they wouldn't do it. Now, we came back and said, it's your park. What are we going to do about this? It was suggested by the county that they turn the park over to us. We would then assume the cost, and we would agree to that. If they would turn the park over, we would then pay the half and put the culvert in, provided that the easement was done and that we had that completed. We'd have no problem with that. According to Page, that's not a problem. They'll go there. The winery itself has said they would like to see a trail from the park all the way up through their winery that connects with the Abbey, because the Abbey has a big trail system. I asked them, would they give us the easement, the right of way, which is a lot of money. They said yes. As a matter of fact, she not only said yes, she met with some of the other wineries, because we want to connect that trail all the way down to the current trail that we have that goes through Dundee and goes down and connects to the trail that ODOT that we're working on now. That's a long-term plan. So she met with the owners. They tentatively had said, yes, they would give us the easements through there. So, but that's long-term. That's just how things work when you get into something.
Can we make a formal request of the county to acquire that park in a letter from the board?
We have done that.
So we've made a
I believe-
formal request to,
We have not.
we have not.
We pointed out the fact that it was our conservation.
Okay, but that aside, to have it as owned by the Park and Recreation District, we would need to make a request, the board would need to make a request.
Is we'll come back to the board and ask you to approve that.
So, yeah, like, but I think that we have to be smart. It sounds like there's a whole lot of stuff going on here, so it has to be predicated on the easement, at least the access easement,
Right,
and the county
correct.
donating the land to the park district before we do the culvert. Because if they're not gonna put money in, and they're not gonna give us the park that we don't have a lease on, and we can't get an easement, let that be the county's problem, it doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
You know, here's the deal. This is a non-issue issue. What we need to do is get the county commissioners together with us and let's have a conversation. Let's
That's,
quit tiptoeing around this thing.
well,
I don't know why this has taken so long. I don't know who's in charge of it. When's the last time somebody contacted the county? When's the last time somebody contacted them? Why don't we do it? Why doesn't somebody from staff contact the county and say, how can we get this done?
Well, I think what you.
we have had the public works director from the county out there several times, which he's over the parks for the county. And, right. So it's not like we're not trying.
So, but what you said is that you'll probably at the next meeting bring to us a proposal, and I think we can do it all, and like, we could do it in writing in a letter. It's very simple. Give us the easement in the park, we'll take over maintenance, we'll deal with the culvert.
Correct.
And then I think that's a decision that we can make as you know, as a board, make some policy, and I think it's gonna be a win-win for everybody. It looks like we have willing neighbors, which is big. I think that's a big part of what we have on this page here, a positive rapport with the constituency. Same thing with Sanders Park, right?
Right.
We have willing participants. If we have people who want us around and they want us to build a trail or a path or build on their land, those are things that are within our mission statement and our goal, and that's what we should do.
Correct.
So this doesn't need to be a negative thing. This can be a real good first step with the county doing something that it's money that they can't spend. It's a liability for them, it sounds like, where it can be really positive for us. So
Okay, so I think I've got that.
yeah.
Next one is the Cultural Center upstairs theater.
The Cultural Center in 1990, I guess it was 96, all the city council from Newburgh, the school board, our board, we all met. The idea was we had requested Rennie School. The school board said, no, you can't have Rennie, but we'll give you Central. Our board wasn't keen on Central because there was a question about the viability of it. So we took an engineering firm through Central to make sure that we wasn't getting a death trap and that we were getting something that could be fixed. Based on that information, we brought it back. All the government entities said, Park and Rec, you take it. The board, if I remember correctly, voted 3-2 to take it. It was a 3-2 vote. After
You have that in, you have it then, you own it.
yes, we own it. The idea was after we owned it, what do you do with it? We knew that the land was prime, so we had a part, even if we tore the building down. So we called McMenamins, we called private business, and we kind of did an RFP to see if there was any concerns or private people would step up for that building. We got nothing. We did talk to them. Their comments were I was very thankful. They said, Don, like McMenamin, we have one in McMinnville, we have one in Forest Grove, we have one in Sherwood. They're struggling. If we put one in Newburgh, that'll take away the traffic. I said, would you be interested later? Probably not. We're probably 10, 15, maybe even 20 years away. So then we said, okay, what are we going to do with the building? We met with the congressional delegation because we knew that we'd have to have some funding. The congressional delegation made a suggestion, one stop, one shop. Bring in all the service agencies into that building, all the local service agencies. We looked at that. We then went out and we asked the community what they wanted. After we did the surveys and we got the input for the community, the cultural center was born. That's what the community wanted, was a cultural center. How was we going to do a cultural center on our budget and with what it was going to cost? The board met, and actually it was Mike Ragsdale who made the suggestion, which is what we kind of followed and set down. We formed the Chehalem Cultural Center, which was a nonprofit, 501c3.
The subset of defects.
Right,
Well, no, it's a separate, not
Yeah.
501c3
It's on its own.
entity,
Right.
yeah, it is not a
501.
subsidiary.
We let them run the building. In return, when we set that up, they were going to fundraise for the building. So far, they have raised probably $9 million or more.
Oh, it's closer to 20 million.
Yeah,
For everything that they've
it's
done in
it's
there? Yeah,
huge.
it's-
That's been completed.
That
No, the
well,
theater is the last
the
piece.
theater is the last
Okay. All right.
piece.
I'm just trying to get to the theater,
Right.
so just trying to,
That's
Yeah.
the last
that's
piece.
the last.
But they currently have how much money? About 5 million. And they're gonna build it out. In the past, we have contributed some. I'd say we put in 250,000 one time. We put in 500,000 another time.
But there's a reason though, right? Because like so CPRD owns the building and the cultural center owns all the improvements. So that's weird. And as such, CPRD takes care of the building and the outside. And I think one of the requests that had come was to help with the roof when this theater thing is, because they're gonna have to go through the roof.
So is that 5.5 million?
Is that the cultural center is 5 million of that. So they may need a little bit more, or they may have raised some more, I'm not sure. But the idea is that, yeah, they've gotten their permits. I mean, they should be ready to go. They
Yeah.
should be ready to go out to bid any minute.
So the status is that they're going out to bid.
Correct.
So they're going out to bid. Do we know estimated completion?
They're open,
It's like
So
a
summer
summer, fall.
24.
Jason, you got a question?
I do. I don't understand why the hell we even own the cultural center building. Why don't we just sell it to them, let them do what they want to do, and let them run it, let them manage it? Why?
because they won't fund the building. The cost of maintaining the building is pretty high.
But I don't understand why we're
Because we
financing
have a
this.
park around it, and it provides
This
opportunities
community
for community.
is
I'm not
very-
saying get rid of the cultural center, okay?
Right.
I'm not saying that at all. I just can't wrap my head around why in the hell would we be paying for some entity that I don't know why we would be paying for this. It doesn't make any sense to me. We're paying for it, we're letting these people
Okay,
Well,
run
wait a
it the
minute.
way that they want to run it, which is fine.
Well, so I'll, it is a public-private partnership where CPRD does not have to raise $20 million to go ahead and build out the center.
And I can
And
appreciate
it's still
that.
an asset
Yeah.
of CPRD. And CPRD's mission, vision, and values is to go ahead and make sure that we have all of these availabilities of programs and parks, right? And this is one of those.
Would it go away if they owned it themselves?
It would struggle
Why?
because it's expensive.
It doesn't, they don't send any of the money to CPRD, correct?
They don't ask for,
Say that again.
yes, it does.
The fundraising.
The fundraising, yeah.
So they do that.
We
But
could,
you own the building.
We spent, yeah,
But we don't have it, we don't get a benefit for that.
oh,
you
Yes,
can use
you
it
do.
anytime you
But-
want.
Yeah, exactly.
we do get a benefit. The
Whole
community
country
gets a
benefit.
benefit.
Well, they'd still get the benefit,
Down-
even if
down-
CPRD owns it,
You
correct?
still take
Or
care
not
of
CPRD,
parks.
but if they owned it themselves.
Well, then if we take that attitude, then we don't work with the school district. We don't work with any entity. We just control everything. And that's not the way that we did. With CPRD, many years ago, we said the key to CPRD is cooperation, professionalism, responsiveness, and dedication. And those are the 4 values that we put in for CPRD, cooperation being the one. And whether it be with private, public, 501c3s, we cooperate to make recreational opportunities for the community. And we're better able to maintain and keep that building up than they are.
So do you maintain and keep the?
Yes.
building up? Okay, you guys do. So you currently have an agreement between the two bodies?
That's correct.
And that agreement is good for
50 years.
50 years. Okay, so you're in a current, to go back to answer the question, you're in a current agreement.
Yes.
You
Correct.
have an agreement.
And so just to get back on track, so $5.5 million is estimated upstairs theater, but the CCC has not made a formal request to CPRD for any funds, so we haven't budgeted anything for
I don't know.
this,
Can you go
correct?
back to the,
We're gonna have to probably do ADA sidewalks around the
I believe.
perimeter. Ask Jim how many times.
Okay.
other
So
grants,
we're
other
expecting
funds.
that we
didn't
will
have it
pay
on.
something. Obviously, this 5.5 million, that's not what we're
It's not
looking
coming
at.
out of
We're
our
looking
budget.
at maybe 100,000, maybe.
100,000 would be a good number for ADA access.
For ADA, okay.
I kind of took a look around today, it's not every one of them, but.
Right. Okay. Well, I think at least we understand the background there and then what we're looking at for
Not really our
funding.
funds that you see there.
Right, yeah.
But-
And I think that's the key thing for us
But
to
in
know.
the agreement, it says that any of the building is ours. And if they improve it, it stays ours.
Still,
If they leave tomorrow,
Mhm.
yeah, you have
then
$20
we,
million.
we have to, the building, they can't take the improvements with them.
Right.
But there's currently an agreement,
Yes.
so anything in the agreement about breaking an agreement or keeping an agreement, it's all within that.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, so let's move on to
So last
219.
one's 219 campground.
So that's going through land use, and we, we asked for some more time. Responses to public comments that came up with.
So you're in the planning phase of it right now?
Yeah, planning, planning outreach, we did a feasibility study back in 2019, okay, for the campground. So all that's documented, and it was working on, there's a lot of parts of that.
Do you have an estimate of time of what your next completion of one and next phase is?
Well, we're gonna have some discussions with the city and the county. It's probably before we do it, there's a possibility. Dawn and I talked to the city a long time ago about running a road down alongside 219.
Yeah.
From Wilsonville
They said,
Road.
no, we're never gonna do that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I hear other ones.
Well,
So
they,
it's changed.
But is that land in the city?
It's not,
no,
it's in the county.
It's in the county, but, here's the but. The but is, they originally went to bring that land into the city. It got held up. They abandoned, Luba sent it back to them. They abandoned the idea, why they abandoned the idea, I don't know, but it's not for me to say. They abandoned it. So now they've come back with the idea of putting it back in.
They being.
The city of
city.
Newburgh.
Correct.
Just trying to
So-
make sure I understand who's.
So, but prior to that, we may be able to bring it off of 219. We still will explore the cost, but it may be prohibitive with the cost of bringing it off of 219, but we don't know that yet. And ODOT will work with us. Most people don't know ODOT has to use our property to get down to maintain the bridge that goes across. And we allow that. The second thing is ODOT used mitigation, spent about
$1.8 million.
1.8 million mitigating all that land that we own. They used it to mitigate down there in that
So
area.
you folks own land.
That's correct.
Do you have an agreement with the city? Is it the city that wants to put the improvement in, or you folks?
Us,
You want to? Okay,
Yes.
all right.
So this might be another one of those where if we do a sort of a joint meeting and we see what is their 5-year plan? Are they expanding the UGB?
there you go.
Because I heard certain things about potential industrial or tech sector
That's
being
correct.
put there, and so they'd have to develop that. They'd have to put in a road. So then we could actually do something together.
So a joint meeting with the
Right.
city as being an estimate of something that you would want to do as a board.
Right.
You want to do that in the winter, the fall?
Sooner
spring?
than later.
Yeah.
Sooner than later, yeah.
Right. And I think this is another one of those projects. I know it's in the current projects list because we're doing the land use
Right.
approval process. I see it as this is probably a 10-year thing, probably, right? Before there's an actual
I hope-
physical campground.
I hope it's a 5-year, but
Okay.
depending on the land use and those type things, it could spread out to 10 years.
Okay.
Again, we don't know everything.
And, but you don't have funds set aside for it right now, you just have estimate of cost, is that all you have? So you just, so in other words, it's just an estimate of cost, but there's no,
Yeah.
you haven't funded it.
That's correct.
Estimate of cost. Thank you. All right. Well,
But
that-
we,
Yes, sir.
we must do the land use and get all that, because if we wait till everything is right, then that'll take 2 or 3 years, as you already see. So we can do that. So let's do that so that when we're ready to move.
Right.
And that's why some of these projects, people think, well, gee, why did it take so long? Well, that's the reason.
So,
Because that's the way you
We've
have to
gone through
operate.
projects underway, all right? Anybody need a bathroom break? Oh, I do, I'm sorry.
All right. Yeah. Let's do a 5-minute break and come back at 6:43, 6:44. Yep. Yep. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I can get a cookie.
Well, if you have something to contribute to the top part, that would be helpful. If you didn't.
I probably do.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. I was
Great.
in
How are you?
today with John Paul.
when you're having this discussion about learning things, getting more formal information, and then the next time being able to then sit down and say, okay, what are the priorities? Where do we want to be? Have that discussion as a board. How do we move these things forward? What do we do? How do we get those things done? Is the next step we want to do. But I think you ought to have what you've talked about and what you've learned tonight in a more formalized format, so you can look down and say, oh, okay, now I understand. Doesn't mean you're done. Doesn't mean you haven't stopped digging. And understanding some of these things is really important. If you're going to sit down with the county, you want to be as informed as you can about a project, right? So that you understand that either where the status of the agreement might be or where things are, so you can have a conversation back and forth about what to do with those kinds of things. So it's always good to get the politics together, but it's also good to make sure you understand all the what's happened back and forth. Does that sound fair, staff? I mean, yeah, what we're trying to go through. All right, so you have it divided up. So those are projects underway, and they are both in your budget, not in your budget yet, but these are your priority projects when you say underway. Is that how you would define them? These are the things that are taking your time and attention right now, at least from a planning perspective on parks. Not talking O&M, not talking programmatically, but this is where you are from a capital perspective, right? So we're talking capital here, right? But that engages program, that engages O&M, all those things. All right, so the top list. Don, can you just give me a sentence or two on how this top list came to be? What differentiates that top list from the bottom list? And that's the Chehalem Parks and Recreation District projects. This is the 1 through 12.
Yeah, this is the list.
Move closer to the mic, apparently quiet.
That the board has approved over the years. In other words, these are projects that the board wanted to do.
Okay, over time, and these are, do they have higher dollar figures? Is that why they show up in this list up here? Or have they been budgeted for, or these are things that you would like to get to?
These are things that the board wanted to get to.
So
And
1 through 7 is what you're into right now.
Right.
1 through 12 is what you would like to get to.
That's correct. And 1 through 12 has various, we've done certain things to come up with these figures.
So you've done estimates and
Right,
some things like that.
that's correct.
1 through 7 are in 1 through 12.
Okay, that's nice to understand. So 1 through 7 fits somewhere in 1 through 12. 1 through 7, you're really working on.
So we don't need to, we can go through this list separately, but not rehash the same ones.
Not have to rehash some of
Right.
the same things. Is
The
that
only-
correct?
Correct.
The only thing that I want the public to understand is, like, let's take trails, for instance, when it says estimated cost $75 million, that's not the cost of the bypass trail. I don't want people to think that. You know, that's the trail systems for the next 100 years throughout the whole parks department, cities, and so on. So when you see some of these numbers, and Don, correct me if I'm wrong, they're looking at huge projects down the road, could be 50 years down and we're not even here.
Correct. With the trail system, we did the strategic plan. We then did a master plan for phase 1. Phase 1 was developed. The board decided the most important was to develop the Dundee-Newburgh connection along the bypass. So that's what we've been working on.
Okay. So let me get some clarity here. You have a master plan.
Yes.
And your master plan is on your website.
Correct.
It is, when was it adopted?
2010, the date's on it.
Okay.
I can't
So
remember.
2010, but that's your master plan.
Right.
Okay. Just,
Strategic plan started, when was it, Jim, the 90s?
Yeah, I think back in those
Yeah,
times.
back in the 90s, we did a strategic plan. Even in the 80s,
Okay.
We were.
Those are
talking-
previous plans to
Right.
the 2010 master plan. But I'm just trying to make sure I'm clear on this. 1 through 12 sit in that master plan in one way or another? Yes or no? 1 through 12 in the top, are they
Yes,
in your master plan somewhere?
correct.
Okay, that's, okay. So the source of where you guys have been thinking about this, strategic plans lead to your master plan, you did a public process for your master plan,
The,
and then this has informed your 1 through 12.
Yeah. the master plan basically is based on the number of acres that we need, the type of parks that we need, the type of facilities in those parks that we need,
Sure.
and this addresses all of that.
So, good. Does the board need any more clarification on what that means? So your master plan.
No, we don't.
You
No,
don't?
we can
You-
just start
you
going.
guys are good?
Yes.
Okay. And so, just to help me clarify, give me some technical things. 1 through 7 sit in 1 through 12. Which ones are they? Let's just cross those off, so we'll only concentrate on that. Just a
We can
bit of
just start, we can
administrative.
start 1, 2, and then we'll start skipping as we get to them.
Okay, so we'll start skipping as we go through. Is that
Yeah.
fair enough?
Yeah.
So we're going to throw over to you folks. Tell me about, again, status, estimated completion of 1.
The golf course third 9. You want to take it or you want me to?
Golf course third 9 has not gone through land use. We have a design done. 2020. Additional 9 holes. And it encompasses the property from the far east of the existing golf course to Single Road. And currently farmed by Mark Gabler and Ruth Kilgore, was the Single property. After Mark mentioned to us that he couldn't farm Kilgore's anymore because he wasn't very profitable. So we had the Kilgore's removed. And Kilgore is
It's your property then? It's your property. Okay.
I would say, I think it's important. I believe Todd did that for,
Todd Saunders did the clearing of that property, one winter when
right.
it was fairly dry, and we had the ability to, he wasn't limiting the equipment, and he charged us basically his equipment rent, and that was it. He charged us for his equipment rent.
So to help with the process a little bit here, status, estimated completion, and source. Source can be to be determined if you don't know the dollar amount. Estimated completion, if it has a longer horizon.
One second. We're on YouTube, so it's fine. We're on hard drive space.
Okay.
Oh, I can go?
Proceed.
Yeah.
Whatever he says. I'm going with it. Okay, so if it's not been determined yet, TBD, and then estimate, if it has a longer horizon than a budget year, if you can just give a horizontal range. Remember, I'm not holding everybody to this. We're just trying to inform the board so they understand the thinking behind it.
The last portion of the golf course was funded by currently those loans run out in 2026.
24, 25, we're through.
24, 25.
That's correct.
There's a possibility it can happen after that. But alongside that, we'll make some decisions on the pro house at the same time.
The loans that we're paying, what is our yearly debt service on those? Or how much do we pay per year? Do we estimate?
They were combined with pool bond too. So,
No, it's, I've got
interest rate.
Refinance.
right here, loan history. It's roughly, 7, it's roughly 600, well,
That's combined.
yeah, that's combined. We combined those. So 300 from 700 would be about 400,000. Yeah.
And so we refinance with the aquatic center, I'm hearing?
Right.
Or
We
those-
refinanced the last one with the aquatic center, and it goes down in 25, 26, we pay 596, and then 26, 27, we pay 354.
On the golf course.
No,
On all
Okay,
of the
that-
loans.
I'm sticking with the golf course.
Yeah.
Right, so
But
he's
out of
gonna
your
fix
current
Not
debt
possible,
service
right,
structure,
yeah.
that's, so it sits in a current debt service. What I heard you say, though, was that estimated completion of those falling out of that requires then a conversation and direction by the board about where you want to prioritize that to start sometime after 25.
It has to go through the process. It'll take a couple of years.
All right, Jim has a.
Yeah, I'm just gonna, I know how long this third nine's been talked about. Are we still in need, and I'm not against it, but are we still in need of having that third nine take place?
we're not in need of a third 9. That's the reason we haven't pushed it. We're not definitely in need. The thing that I want to tell the board, based on the best information I have, if you build a clubhouse, it will take away from the current revenue. I've talked with the OGA, I've talked with Meadows, when they built the clubhouse, their revenue went down. As a matter of fact, some of them said, we wish we hadn't have done it, but we did it.
Well, my assumption is that if we attempt to do the clubhouse, we'll do a business plan and find out.
That's correct.
But my question was, again, I'm gonna reiterate, my question is, and I'm not against having a third 9, don't get me wrong, but I just want to know if it's gonna help us or not.
The third 9 will generate, with the third 9, based on the tournaments that we have, and they're growing a little bit, we should be able to increase the revenue probably around 300,000 a year.
Okay, well, that sounds like that's.
And, but there'd be additional expenditures as well as the loan payment. The loan payment will probably run in the neighborhood of 200 and something thousand, depending on what our interest rate is and those type things. The current loan payment for the Beck 9 was 193,000. But this will probably be more. But you also increase your operational
Right.
costs.
But is the demand there? I think is what Jim is asking. Is there the demand?
What's your current
For a
round?
third
What's your current
one.
rounds on 18 right now?
46,000.
46,000 a year?
It's
rounds.
getting close. When you get over 55,000 rounds, course can do about 55,000 rounds. So the projections was right around 40-something thousand. So we're pretty good there. And the rounds are increasing each year. As Newburgh grows, the rounds will increase.
Why does the clubhouse decrease revenue?
What's that?
Why does the clubhouse decrease revenue?
Because of the loan that you take to build it, the loan payment is there. It will raise revenue, but we already have revenue coming in with our current deal. The other thing that's important when you build a clubhouse is your traffic patterns and, for instance, how do you man that particular area? What we are hoping, quote, is that we would be able to go out for an RFP to help the cost, which could help us break even
An
with-
RFP for services,
Right.
managed services in it?
with the restaurant part, so that we could take that yearly deal, apply it to the debt service, and be able to go that way. That may be a lifesaver, so that we could do it. Again, we won't know until we decide to go there. We could put out the RFP, but I would suggest before we do the final work, because restaurants, let them tell us how to build that and what they need to do it. And in return, they become part of the process. So,
But right now, you don't, you have a projection for this, potential 9, rehabilitation or an additional clubhouse? An
It
additional
would be
clubhouse.
a clubhouse. There isn't really a clubhouse.
Okay, so-
It's modular buildings.
So the temporary structure, fair enough. So right now, you don't have a business plan for this yet. You just have, this is on our list. If we get to a certain number, then then the board would need to begin engaging other processes to make this thing move forward. Okay. How you fund it, what it is it an additional 9 or not?
Well, this is the kind of discussion it's good for us to have, because this is one or the other, one before the other, both of them, neither of them.
Yep.
That's the kind of policy making
Between 1 and
discussions
2.
that we all
Between 1
have
and
to
2.
think
Yeah.
of.
Okay,
So
all right.
So when is the projected time that you're thinking that you'd like to do the 9s if we think it's necessary? When are you thinking?
25, 26, after the ones.
And how long does it take to go through the process for land use?
I wasn't involved with the last one. Should go smoother, I don't know.
So what's the
Just that
time frame
process.
look?
Oh, sorry.
What does the time frame look like?
It's in the county, so
What does it normally look like?
3 years.
So why don't we start working on it now, so when we're ready, we can say, we're ready to go,
Because you guys may decide that you don't want to do that.
okay?
And that's
that's
all.
what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That was
Gail,
my
go
question.
ahead.
What is the cost of the land use? How much does that cost to do it?
That's what happens.
I would,
Just the application is about $8,000.
yeah, I would say you're looking at 100,000, between 125,000 by the time you're through, when you involve the attorneys, the consultant. It depends on what the county requires, and you have to go out and bring in the consultants.
Okay, so, but if the board decided to move this up in a priority, one of the things staff would have to do is bring back, these are the steps we would need to take, and then the board could say, okay. Then you'd have a better idea. Yeah. Do I want to expend that now, or do I want to make sure that we need to do it? What do we need? Do we want to do some prep work before we get there? So, okay, fair enough. What else do you want to know about this? Anything else we want to get on the table with the 1 and 2?
I
I'd
think
put 1 and 2 together.
The one thing that hasn't
But-
been stated that we do absolutely have to touch on at least a little bit is there's some sort of a surcharge fee for a clubhouse fund. I don't fully understand that. If anyone wants to,
That, I think, came out of the golf course committee they don't like the existing facility, and so they came to the board with this idea that everybody would be charged $5.
$5 around.
Around, that would go into this pot, that would just build so that it would help reduce the impact of the cost of the clubhouse once it was built.
Okay.
Once it was ready.
Has that started? Did that happen?
Yes.
Yeah, it's happening.
So you
That's-
have a fund.
And I
Yeah.
don't, yeah.
All right.
So I get,
So yeah, are we managing expectations? I think what you're saying is a really important thing. If we've already let people out there know that, yes, we're starting something, like we have to decide, is that really something we want to do? Because we have community members out there doing some work, right? And and with this vision that something's going to happen. So if that's not going to happen, we definitely don't want them wasting their time.
does staff have any comments on that? Any background or anything that might help us understand better?
My recommendation to the board would be, if you do the clubhouse, definitely do the second 9, go all in. The reason for that is because the revenue from the second 9 will help with the clubhouse. I think it's pretty clear, based on the feasibility studies and stuff that we have currently.
So let's say that we go that way, we can start maybe some of the land use applications if the board decides and start that now and move ahead. And then possibly, once our debt is retired, then begin construction at that time. So if the board decides that they want to move ahead, then we probably should look at that soon if we're going to look at this project at all.
And I will just throw out there that there is 18 holes, right? And there's other things like pickleball courts and other things that aren't there, so that
Right.
people can use. So if we're prioritizing, I think we just need to make sure we're considering this.
I think it's important too, Kellen Saskin is our golf director, and he usually attends monthly board meetings. I think he'd be a great one to talk to get his advice on that. I think he's spoken about that a couple times, but he'd be a good one to ask, what do you think is more important? What do you think we should do first? He has worked with Heidi, our AP, or our administrative coordinator, to establish that bucket where that money is being placed right now. And so there is money there that is out in the community that I wouldn't say that project has been approved, but that money is going towards this project.
Yeah, so mentally, people have the idea out there that this is something that's already moving forward, I think.
Okay. So this, probably what I'm hearing is this is a priority discussion item that we might need to put on a future agenda in the next couple months. I think the discussion will be if we're actually, your recommendation would be if you do any, do both. Some other people may think one or the other. And either way, if the third 9 is part of that, the land use process, we might want to get going since it could be 2-3 years. So when we have the ability to.
The question with the third 9 is we're currently called. We don't have reservations. We don't have a place to put them on the reservation. If we had a third 9, we could then put them in. So that would help. Everybody wants to play at the same time. And how we do that will be important. More and more, I would say, more and more golfers. Brandon was blown away about this area playing 9 holes, but this area only had, so people were used to playing only 9 holes and not 18. But it's grown to 18. Now it's kind of shifting a little bit, going back to 9. But the market varies from year to year, and from every 10 years it'll change. But we can look at that.
So, priority discussion of bringing this back, making sure that you're working on this as so you understand the business case for it.
Yeah.
And how it might work, how much the funds are right now, what's the business case for, what things will we need to do to verify the business case?
Right.
We're all hearing the same thing, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And then to make it easy for you, we don't need to talk about the bypass trail.
Yep,
We do need to talk about the remaining trail system, I think briefly, because it's such a big number there.
Okay,
And then staff, you might want to fill us newer members in on what that entails in totality, just so we have an idea.
Heritage Trails.
Yeah, the Heritage Trail System was a 54-mile trail system, if I remember. It was 54, 57. It goes from the river all the way up and forms a loop at the top with the connection. The other part of the trail system is we connect in to the trail system that Metro and Washington County, Clackamas County all have planned. You don't plan your own trail system, you plan a system that hooks in so that you have a continuation. That came in the 80s when we met at Champoeg. State Parks met with all and brought in all of those entities. And we planned all of that. When I say we planned to work together to do all that. So as we go through our process, we'll do that. There is a second plan that has been in existence since the 70s, which is the Willamette River Greenway Trail System that has been progressed. I believe in Marion County, Kaiser, they're very interested in that. There's also not only the walking trail system, but the boating trail system, the waterway trail system. So it's not only that. When we got the Crystal Riley Park, we thought about equestrian because that was talked about. Where are we going to have equestrian trails? So the one thing that we haven't done yet is approach, and we will, is the motorbike trails, motorized trails. That's a bigger thing, and I don't know if we can do that or not, but that's going to come up.
But out of this number, let's say in the next 5 years, we're probably looking at hopefully the completion of the bypass trail. Out of that 75,000 could be done, that could be the next 50 years.
Right.
It's just a plan and it may never come to
Exactly.
fruition. But what I'd like to know
We'll
out
all
of that
be
number, if we have a ballpark of finishing the bypass trail, district costs, ODOT costs. That's what I'd like to know out of that number, because I think that's what realistically what this board will be working with.
$9 million, the next grant, it's like those federal, so I don't know when that happens, 26 or something like that. It's 10.78 date. That's our match. They fund the rest of it.
10.78
Or again, something.
million or percent?
No, it's
Percent, all right.
percent.
That will be our match to their.
So that's where I see these numbers. I mean, when you said you put down 75,000, the board looks at, oh my God, that's a lot for trails, and that's not really
The
the
9,000, the
But you still have the
9,000,
budget for that, so
Yes.
the 9,000 was the current trail. The 9 million was the current phase one.
No, I get it.
Phase two goes, which will be about 6 million. And we will put in about 10% of that 6 million, which will be 600,000. ODOT and the feds will fund the rest of that.
Okay, so help me understand, because I'm trying to understand 75 million as well. I hear if I went to the master plan and added up all your trails, you did a macro view.
That's 50,
That's an estimate of all the kinds of trails that you would do.
That's
Okay.
50-something miles of trails.
Okay. And what I hear is in your current underway, you have a trails bypass phase one. That's this $2.6 million that I'm looking at down here, right? And is that in the 9 million? That's not,
Yes. Yes, it is.
oh, it is, okay.
It is in the 9 million.
So understanding what the balance is left out of that and maybe breaking that down a little bit more for information, where they are and what they are. Does that sound like information the board would need?
We have an approximate number, which was 6 million for the second 9. My guess is, based on what I've heard, what I've seen with the first phase, we'll probably go another 1 million. I wouldn't be shocked. But one of the things I've also learned is when you start putting numbers out there, people remember those numbers.
Oh, yeah,
So
they do.
put the lowest number so that you don't give them
So-
an invite to come in and take the money from you.
So the whole 54 miles, I mean, this is like maybe a 25-year
Yeah,
plan.
it's
So, but you did say second phase. So Newburgh Dundee bypass is done, and then you're talking about what would be the second trail phase that we'd be
well,
delving into?
you will decide that.
Okay.
But the
So there's not
question-
been a priority list. Once
Right.
the Newburgh Dundee bypass
There
trail's
are
done.
pieces of our heritage trail program that the city has done. They do safe routes.
Right.
Money and
Right.
done the portion.
Uh-huh.
That's another conversation between the city and. parks
Okay.
and-
Okay.
And when we get there, we'll know.
Because a lot of it has to do with sidewalks.
Uh,
It's not necessarily pathways.
just in-town sidewalks that
In-town.
connect trails that already
In-town
exist.
trails
Right.
So this doesn't impact private property? Okay.
We made that decision early on. It will impact private property. But we made the decision when it impacts private property, we will not, under any condition, condemn it or do anything. If they don't want it to impact them, it won't impact
That includes farms, farmland?
anything.
Okay.
I have a house as an easement behind it.
Mhm.
It's for Park District Direct. I live over here. It was part of the development.
That's right. When the developers come in, we ask for easements and stuff so that later on, when we develop these trails, we'll have the land. Right.
Okay. Well, I'm going to make it this easy for you. So we got to skip the campground, the cultural center, Rennie Fields, Sanders State, Riley Park, and then we get to the pickleball courts.
Pickleball. Does anybody know, any of the board members know how many pickleball courts we should have?
How many we should?
Well, according to NRPA, for every 1,000,
9,000.
I mean, every 9,000.
9,000 people.
Right.
Thank you.
Every 9,000 people, you should have a court.
Just one,
So we should have 4 courts.
3 courts. Or 4, yeah, for the
Right.
district, yeah.
That would meet the standard.
That would meet the standard, but we already have a
But-
pickleball community that is taking
but-
over the tennis courts that you
but-
can't play tennis on.
Dawn, what's the standard for wineries?
Thank you for mentioning.
What's the standard for wineries?
Okay,
I
so
don't know.
We can find out for you.
I would say in this instance, we need to go beyond the standards. But 4 courts will meet the standards. But as I told you, what I see is working with the college, we build 6 there. We build 2 additional tennis courts. They can have 8 courts of pickleball on. So we have 8 and 6. That's 14 courts, which is ideal for tournaments, correct?
As long
Then we build 2 at Rennie, which we're planning on doing. Then we go out to Dundee because the standards is not only per population, but distance as well. So we build out at the new grade school, we build some courts. Then when that development, he's already said what he's going to do in that development that's up by the greens, we'll build some additional courts. So we'll have plenty of pickleball courts.
But I thought I heard when they were here in last meeting,
And you're
specifically,
still participating in the feasibility study.
Right.
for that.
right.
That's correct.
But they were asking for the courts to be together. They don't want 2 courts here and 4 courts there and 6 courts here and 3 courts
Well,
there.
think of the land you need.
I understand that, but if we're gonna develop, I mean, why bother if you're not gonna develop? They're the ones that play. They know what they need.
So I'm
Well-
gonna
26,
jump in. I'm gonna jump in real here because you did mention the George Fox courts, and I know I'm jumping into what was on my priority list, but that's the number 2 priority. I think that's on my list. Is just I'm speaking personally.
Yeah.
The George Fox partnership is what we had done before in the past with the tennis courts. This is before pickleball existed in our minds, right? And I can speak from a tennis player, that was a fantastic setup for us for a number of reasons. First reason, the cost and the land are somewhat provided by Fox. You know, we build this many, they build this many. That's no brainer number 1. No brainer number 2 is the college actually maintains the courts and they maintain them to a competitive Division III standard. Okay. I did talk to the pro at Fox, the tennis coach. He also runs their whole bubble, their indoor system, which is similar to what the pickleballers were. It's very similar in business structure, and it's really what we should use to compare in terms of how
That's
they're
correct.
booking, their money, how busy it is. I can tell you it's packed all the time in the rainy season. He can tell you what packed all the time means in terms of their revenue. And it's not like he's not making $5 million a
Slightly
year.
less than
So-
300,000 a year.
Right. So this is,
It's
Okay.
not in the
so
millions.
what I can tell you from a tennis player perspective who also understands pickleball, and I also understand the relationship we've had in the past with George Fox. If we can put as many courts, both pickleball and tennis, as we can possibly fit there on their land, that would be the biggest win of this park district possible, in my opinion, because the George Fox will run the tennis programs. They will maintain the courts, tennis and pickleball. They will get their people pickleball certified to do camps, training, and all the tournaments that the pickleball people want to do. And we do that without us creating our own building, without us trying to, as a park district, hire a pickleball professional, hire all these things that just would be very difficult. So
And
my recommendation on this pickleball issue and on the tennis issue is go as big as we can with George Fox with that partnership. It's free money, it's free maintenance, it's free service.
Free parking.
And they have restrooms which elderly people may need, like me.
One of the things for the board's information, this is not something new. We entered into agreement in the 80s. I remember that I was told that the college would not work with the community. I contacted the college. Stevens was the president. He said, Don, it's time they changed. Let's go for it. We gave them, I remember it was $25,000. We built their existing courts. And the agreement was that they would do that and allow the public in. As you well know,
And they did.
they did. They upheld their deal. We got the best $25,000. That was a bargain, and the community benefited.
Yeah.
Whereby, like with Linville, as you well know, they don't allow it, and it was the best thing. And with this, I totally agree. We've already established a working relationship. I totally agree with the concept, just as I agree with the cultural center. It's those partnerships in the community that pay off.
Okay, we have three people. You go first.
Okay, so, I believe, so there's where the tennis courts is, and then there's the one before you get to Willow Road, right? I believe George Fox is thinking about selling that property for housing.
A portion
We
of it
know
has
that.
been sold.
Right.
We know that.
That
Yeah.
proximity then to pickleball courts is gonna be really challenging.
But
That's not what we heard.
But just remember, that's not our problem. The second thing is they're well aware of that because we discussed it with them. We're not trying to hide anything. They know that. They already know that. They've discussed that. What occurs there will be something that they'll have to deal with. We benefit from it. Of course, the interesting thing is when we built the golf course, we built it before all the homes were put in there. The golf course was there before the homes were built. We still get complaints from the homes, but they came in after the course was there, so they knew what it was.
We have
Right.
two more, you and then Jim.
Yeah, I just, Scott.
No.
I just wanted to mention that we went out there, we walked that whole area, and the buffer is very nice.
Yeah.
So that's, the issue with pickleball is that, neighbors that live around the areas are really complaining, and so districts and Parks and Recs are really, that's a challenging problem for them, but the buffer is very nice. And we can even even help that with some landscaping, but it's quite a ways away from the housing, and also the restrooms are fantastic.
Well, and to put it in perspective, you have a massive bubble that's already
Yes,
there
it's
and a
right,
parking
yeah.
lot. And then on the other side of the bubble is a giant field and then a school and then a church across the street.
That's
So,
a $500,000 infrastructure.
Right. I mean, again, this is just my opinion, but
Right.
But I'd say if we can get 4 to 6 tennis courts and 10 to 12 pickleball courts, if whatever we can maximize with George Fox there, that is the answer for the tennis and the pickleball problem that we both have, in my opinion. Best bang for your buck. And then the maintenance side, I can't stress this enough. The tennis court maintenance, Jakeworth Park, from a tennis perspective, it's virtually unplayable. And all tennis players played at the George Fox courts until they were taken out 2 years ago for that reason. And that's one of the things that is an advantage for both tennis and pickleball is they are going to manage and maintain those courts to a competitive standard that fits a Division III. So when there's cracks, we don't have to send out our maintenance people to try to rebuild these courts. They're going to be doing it constantly. It's a big change in perspective than if we build our own facility and we're constantly fixing and repairing and resurfacing and recoding and that kind of thing.
They will come back and ask for assistance. I can guarantee you.
And
But that's
assistance
okay.
is one thing.
Right, that's
Yeah.
correct.
Right. And then Jim.
Yeah, what I was gonna say is this board voted to this last meeting to, a proposal to get, what was it?
Feasibility study.
Feasibility study.
Mm-hmm.
So we have already opted to do that. And so I think, and I'm not gonna disagree with you at all on this, but I do wanna say that we need to wait for that to come through and then, go from there. But I think that working with the college is a amazing thing. It's just another cooperative agency that we can work with to help the community. So, but I still think we need to honor what we decided in the last board meeting.
Should we be then at the same time having those conversations with George Fox, even though we're doing it?
The feasibility study will say how many courts that we need.
Right.
We know we need them.
Right.
And we also know we need probably more than the average community given the involvement we have with pickleball. So I don't think there's anything to lose with building courts with Fox. Even if if the feasibility study came back and said, you need 40 indoor heated lighted pickleball courts, it won't. But if it did, we'd still would want to do this with Fox. It would make sense because there'd be such a demand for it.
So that's why I'm asking, do we want to start those come before they decide to do something else with them? You're already talking with them?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things coming out of here tonight is about coordinating, prioritizing projects and things like that from the board's understanding. So status, estimated cost source, partners, how it all works, and then outlining opportunities to sit down with each of them as a board to board with more information underneath to see if you can accomplish some up prioritization.
So on that, it is, I don't know how this has been done in the past. Have we done like liaisons? Like, for example, has a board member perhaps been a liaison to the school district and then actually been part of those discussions if we're discussing the Rennie Field, or a liaison to George Fox and then be part of that, just to, to have our, I don't know, the presence of a board member there to encourage that kind of thing when we're having these negotiations? Is that
When we feel that a board member is needed or they request, we always bring it in.
Okay.
Sometimes we will call you to come in. When we call you, it will be based on where you are in that deal. That's the reason we make the appointments, so that we have that.
When you say we make appointments, are these board appointments to
Right.
various things? Okay.
Board appointments.
Well, and what I hear is that collaborative, what can we do to move projects along kind of thing. And so
Correct.
anytime you can do those things, that's a good thing. So I've noted that here is just also as a separate issue. How do you make sure that that's understood? Anything else on pickleball? I have to tell you, I'm already chewing my cud because I told my kids it was going to be like Chia Pets and Pet Rocks.
Pickleball. that's what you're saying.
Pickleball, yeah. I've been eating, been eating dirt on that one. But anyways, I said that 6 years ago, and look at me, I'm wrong. So, okay, so I see, anything else on pickleball?
No, I think we covered it.
Yeah.
And then we'll skip Crabtree, and then
Yep.
Ewing Young Park, I think, is our next.
Yep, Ewing?
Ewing Young. So here there's the 4.6 million. What all does that include? That's
Yeah.
the master. So that's the,
Parking,
okay.
Covered skate park.
covered skate park, I mean, there's a lot of stuff. on
Yeah.
there.
Master plan already done?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so master plan is completed.
So
Thank
to
you.
do a bridge.
Right.
Get that done, so that was on the phone.
And so I think with this, it's a matter of priorities, like which of the things in that master plan do we do first? I know we had a public input at the last meeting, restrooms, parking lot.
Restrooms and that snack bar.
I think it was restrooms, parking lot, and then like a covered area or an area for like families to like picnic or.
Restroom is probably would be my number
I
one.
agree.
And we need to move on that. Matter of fact, with not only there, but with Rennie and with
Rennie and
the
the
golf course.
Well,
That's
Don, would
three.
you agree with me that it would probably be more advantageous for us to look at the golf course and Ewing Young? Because I'm not sure how far out there the school district will be.
No,
As far as getting a restroom there.
I don't think there's a problem with that, Jim. Once we get that agreement signed, I think they would want that. I know, because we've already talked about it.
Look at your
There's
three
all-
toilet discount, your three different area
Right.
toilet discounts.
And it's better, you get a little better pricing. The way we'll structure this is we'll bid all three out, but we'll put in the bid that we can pick and choose either one that we want. because the bigger one may come in at one price and the smaller one. So, but we've just done that over the years. And then we can also make a decision to go with one vendor because there's a savings with that. Right. Correct. So we'll look at that and make the decision.
So how to prioritize parts of that Ewing Park and restrooms are important. Okay.
Yeah, restrooms have been an ongoing discussion. At this board, we've had a bit of that. Since these are two interconnected, 11 and 12, because if we do restrooms, we do multiple.
Yeah.
Has there been any discussion about a new restroom at Jakewith Park?
We've talked about it in staff about upgrading it. Now we've had to go get it, fix the damage that's occurred over the years.
Yeah.
And it's currently, I don't think it's really ADA, and it's a lot of the reason for the ADA restroom out there. And I don't know if there's a way to get that to become ADA.
It's on the main street.
Those restrooms were built with land and water money. They had to be ADA accessible.
Yeah, well, they're not.
But-
classified ADA today.
But they were built with ADA standards. Because the thing has changed, we can go in and redesign and redo, which I think they can be made accessible. I don't see any reason there's enough room there to do it.
So the discussion on that is separate from this, you get a discount doing multiple bathrooms. You haven't thought about just leveling the bathroom there and building new ones.
It's well constructed, it's just.
Yeah.
There's been, we've replaced the doors in the last year. We've replaced some toilets that have been broken out, plumbing that's not been working. I mean, it's just old.
I think a lot of it is cosmetic work. I think you could probably make that bathroom look a lot better with more cosmetic work, whether it be paint. I mean, I had to put those sinks in because they were pulling the sinks out of the walls, stuff like that, so they don't look so
They're
good.
bulletproof fixtures.
Right, so you need to get some stuff in there to make it look better, but I'm not sure, it does need to meet current ADA, even though it might have met before, just to make that, especially if we go for grants later on. So, you need to look at that, but I think a lot of it's cosmetic and there is some structural, so you just have to take a look at that as part of your maintenance program. I don't think at this point we need to replace that. To me, a toilet that you do need to replace is going to be at, and Don may disagree with me on this, at Memorial Park. But
That's an ongoing thing.
yeah, I know it is, but I'm just saying that that's one that I see, but that's down the road. But I think maintenance of those two is the main thing. Yep.
That gets to the bottom of your two list. As far as this goes. My understanding is if you went through this, you folks want to get this kind of organized so you can sit down and have a good conversation about prioritization, some better understanding of the numbers, and have that conversation and then begin that process of understanding the priorities, what next steps are, if you want to do, what do you want to do, what don't you want to do, and having those discussions. But has this been helpful?
Not yet.
Yeah, I think it's been helpful in that we've been able to establish and get some questions answered as to what our projects are and what the holdups are.
Okay.
So why things haven't been completed yet, why things are where they're at. I think the other piece is we need to give everyone a little bit of time to just state what maybe their wish list is or what their priorities are after hearing all this information. So we kind of have an understanding of the pulse of the board and what type of direction it will be. I don't think we'll be able to tonight get to the whole priority list and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think what we now know is we have some information that we're going to have to process as we address these issues in upcoming meetings when we're talking about bathrooms and what the big picture on bathrooms is and why we're addressing more than one when we address the golf course, why we're not just talking about a clubhouse, but why it's the third nine, it's maybe both, it's maybe land use issues. So that's you had something to say?
Yeah, no, I really was hoping before we left tonight, we would all sit down and come to this meeting and say, these are the things that are important to me. These are the projects that we already have in the works. These are the projects that I think we should be considering. We've spoken about some of that here, but I think it would be really nice.
Yeah, that will be how we finish. I'm gonna give everyone time to do that, and hopefully we can all do that in 5 or 6 minutes, so we're not here till 10 at night.
Do what in 5 or 6 minutes?
To speak as to what he was saying. So what our priorities are, what we're valuing each of us individually. I think it's important that we actually be able to have that discussion.
I think that's an okay thing to do. I think that's good for you guys to talk about those kinds of things. But again, I think, it is a draft issue for you folks. I think the idea is you should get these things out. You should get this information. You should have another opportunity to sit down and kind of work your way through it. You know, when you've had a little time to settle. But I do think, after you sat here and listened to this, I do think it's a good idea to create a understanding of some of the things that are your priorities in the list as they are, and maybe some things that are missed, so that staff hears it. You said it out loud to your fellow board members. We can coordinate that stuff together with this, and you can sit down again and go through, just kind of wrestle with it some more. These things don't happen overnight, as you've heard. So board dynamic says, give me some time to think about it, but let's get it off my chest too. Let's make sure I'm saying the things I need to say for this evening. Is that fair enough, sir?
Yeah.
Well, I'd sure like to leave here tonight so that we all have something to think about. And I'd sure like to see that I have something in common with what everybody else here wants to do. So, because I'm sure that we do.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and is there anything else that you wanted to touch on? So I'm going to go ahead and open this time up. This will be each of us. We'll just go in order from this side to this side. So Lisa, you'll get a finish. Jason, you'll get a start. Try to keep it to 5, 10 minutes at the most if you can.
Surely.
I know that's hard.
I won't.
But
I
we're
won't
trying
leave a lot
not
of
to do
time.
another 10 o'clock meeting here. So go ahead.
Thanks, Matt. So look, I think we have some flagship parks, and one of the things that I ran on was making sure that we take care of our existing parks, and that is going to be my priority. And that's one thing that I would like to focus on. I would like to take Jakewith Park and make that our flagship park. That is it is a beautiful park that is in complete disarray. We need to take care of our bathrooms. We got to take care of our trails. We need to look at some of the structures that we have there that I think they actually promote crime to happen. I think that we absolutely need to improve the bathrooms, and we need to look at our horseshoe pits. Maybe it's time for them to come out and we do something else with that area, whether it's parking, whether it's a pickleball court. So maybe that's a possibility.
Can you say the name of that park one more time for me?
Jakewith.
Jakewith. Thank you. Is that Jake?
JAQUITH.
Ewing Young Park. I think it's a fabulous park. Not a fan of the bridge. I think the bridge is fine if it really is only going to cost $63,000. I do believe that we should have bathrooms there. I do believe that we should put asphalt in that park. I think we need to focus on finding a place for bicycles to be. At least 2 more parks for bicycles. That's what I'd like to see happen. Pickleball courts. I think Matt's right on target for making sure that we spend our time figuring out how we're going to service the needs of the pickleball players in the community. Soccer fields. I want to make sure that we have soccer fields, baseball fields, softball fields. I think we got to make sure that we take care of our kids and people who want to play outdoor sports, and we need to promote that. Sanders Park has been something that gosh, when you're given a piece of property, I think that we should invest in that property and move on it versus let it sit. So that's my number 6 item. And lastly, I want to move on the golf clubhouse and the third 9. I don't know that they necessarily need to go together, but for once, I really agree with you, Don. I think that we should go big or go home. And I think that when we start talking about this golf club, I think that we should, or the clubhouse, excuse me, I think that we should really discuss what is this clubhouse, because I'm unaware of what the actual real plan is for the clubhouse. And I think that if we're going to build a clubhouse, we need to go big. I'd like to see a place where my daughter could get married, where somebody has got a business and they decide, we're going to do a retreat. We're going to take everybody. We're going to all play golf. And when we're all done, we're going to go into this banquet room and we're all going to have a great dinner and celebrate how great we did playing golf and talk about how great the golf course was. I'd like to be able to take my wife out to dinner. I'm sure a lot of other people would like to do that. So those are the items that I think that would be great. That's what I would like to focus on.
Thank you. Jim?
Well, since I've been involved in these budgets for so many years, most of our facilities here, most of our parks here have been built with either grants or donations, or they didn't get built because we didn't have the money within the district to do it. And I would say that when people say, oh, we've got flush, we've got a lot of money, we really don't, if you look at how much it costs to build things. So that's why I am always in favor of making sure that what we do, if it has a grant attached to it, that we do that to save the taxpayers' money. And that's my main thing, is we're going to save the taxpayers' money with getting the bypass trail down using ODOT's funds. We're going to save money by completing the Sanders project because of the donations and the grants on that. We are also looking at the Rennie Fields, which I think not only we're getting money from the school district or the state on that, but it's going to definitely help the development of that area down there that is lacking in those facilities. Those are not that I don't think other things should be higher than this. I think there's a lot of good things on this, but I'm looking at us, the park district, spending taxpayers' money, yet we can get money from someone else to supplement that. That's my big priority in doing projects. I think that the pickleball, I think is going to keep growing, and I think that it's important. I just think that we need to look at it hard and do it the right way. So that's kind of where I'm at on the golf course thing. If you can show me a business plan that says, hey, this clubhouse is going to work, or this 9 is going to work, that's awesome. But don't think that I don't think that we need a new clubhouse, because I know that we do. Okay, so I don't want people to think that I'm against it. I just want to make sure that using the taxpayers' funds, that we're going about it correctly. And so beyond that, the other things, restrooms and all that, they're not sexy, but they're used, and we definitely need it at one of our busiest parks at Ewing Young. And we need to upgrade some of them that we already have. And I noticed the staff has worked on some of them already, but that we can do a lot better on that. And, the golfers have already said what they want. I think that those are important things to do. So that's kind of where I'm at. There's other things in here, I get it. But especially when we're looking at spending the taxpayers' money and I can get other money to supplement that, that's my push. So,
Okay. Well, in looking at the vision statement, one of the things that stood out to me was adapting our services and then also cultivating positive rapport with the constituency. And what I heard time and time again over the past really couple of years was that people want the parks, especially in the center of town, the free parks, the community hubs. I'd say, Jakewith is probably the largest one, Memorial also, and then Ewing Young to a certain degree as well. They want those to kind of return to their former glory is what I hear. I use Jakewith Park for the tennis courts probably 3 to 5 times a week, so I'm there a lot. I'm there when there's fights, when people get arrested, when it smells like drugs wafting in the air. I see the bathroom that's always flooded, that smells awful. I see the kind of the reduced use of the community because of those things. So one of my priorities is really reinvesting into these parks, kind of that I see as kind of the core of the community. And I know it's hard because we're in a mindset also of expansion, because we have to expand, we have to secure land, and we have to secure these things for the future. But I think we also have to refocus. And I think Jakewith Park is probably the biggest refocusing that we need to do, because of the mix of crime, safety, and the historical significance of Jakewith.
You ever asked
Mhm.
you ever asked yourself why that is?
Why the park has changed. I think there's a lot of different reasons. I think some of it is, some of it might be just demographic. Some of it might be, to an extent, law enforcement issues. I think some of it is the way it's built. There's like the covered area in the basketball court, the covered area. For some reason, it's become an area where people go to do bad things, and there's more people. Yeah, correct, right. But I think, yeah, and I agree.
Cultural center.
Yeah.
You see it all the time.
Mhm.
It's increased by,
Mhm.
say, in the last 3 years.
It's gonna increase more.
And I agree, and that means that
Not necessarily all the negative
it's
stuff,
going to
but-
make our work harder, and so we're going to have to look at these parks and really just determine, as a board, how do we get a hold of this? How do we maybe stop the bleeding? How can
Well,
we
I think
change the
we're
perspective?
taking big steps
So,
here.
Mhm.
It's all the positive things you guys want to see.
Mhm.
They're all doable.
Mhm.
And we'll take it steps. We'll sign the contract, or we'll sign one
Mhm.
tomorrow, probably, in regards to all the passes, Jakewith and Memorial.
Yep.
And
Mhm.
Hoover's next, and then Shop Park.
Yeah.
There's a big step.
Mhm.
Addressing the landscape needs, things we can do in-house, changing.
Mhm.
Back in the 70s, or how many years ago in old-fashioned days, that horseshoe was the big game.
Yep.
And then, they hold it annually down there at Jakewith. These fall out of favor. It's pickleball now. But, who knows what's gonna be in the future? It'll be gaming.
Yeah.
But, so, I hear what you think and what you're seeing, and I see it too. I'm there, Chris is off the jar, I'm a avid tennis player, and, occasionally do all that and everything else, but, I don't think, I feel your passion, and I respect your drive and being on the board. But it just, it comes across very negative in a lot of ways, in terms of, and we're all grown ass men living in this room, but in regard to that the toilets are constantly overflowing and this, and were you in there today? No, I literally have gotten a call last week from someone, a pickleball member, I guess I could bring up that voicemail, thanking us for how clean and accessible the restrooms are. They passed it on to 2 other staff members, they about fell off. So the effort is being made to maintain what we want. And all I'm saying is, we might just wanna back off a little bit about, we could do this privately or whatever, your passion, your feelings, you have every right to have those feelings.
Mhm.
But it's not gonna generate, that bridge that we're after here. It's not helping matters, and you know, in terms of that. But I don't know if that makes sense, what I'm saying.
It does, but
In real world,
what I'm
steps are being taken to help improve this.
what I'm referring to is investment into
I'm with you 110%.
into these parks. So that might mean we need a remodel to the bathroom. We need new
I absolutely
paths.
think
We
should do that.
need maybe a discussion with law enforcement on patrol. We need to do these things
Well, that's
because
already happening, that's what I'm
the-
getting at, there's a lot of things
yeah.
that are happening that you're not aware of, and we have a wonderful relationship with community service, it's probably stronger now than it's ever been in the history of this town. They don't hesitate, they call, they'll trespass people, they keep those people out of the park in terms of anyone that breaks the rules, doesn't matter if you're houseless or not. They're in, constant communication with us in regards to, you know, what's going on there, so there's no hesitation there. We're taking steps with, and every community has to. We're literally on the same page, but we're kind of feeling what everybody else has felt for a while. You know, and what Portland or quote unquote, all these other McMinnville and things have been going through. I think we're a lot further ahead of the curve on some of this than I'm feeling, that you may realize in terms of where we're at. But that's just my feeling of someone who's been in public service 20-some odd years and sees it daily, boots on the ground, not just from this point of view here. I listen to people too, but I also hear the positive. It's not all, we're being caught doing a lot of stuff right, not necessarily wrong. And I think the board should be aware of that. Do we pass it on time? No. That's not our job. We come and we do our job, we serve the community daily, and we don't look for the kudos or the pats on the back. But they're out there, and we're doing a lot of stuff right. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
And I think these sessions like this these are absolutely fantastic.
Okay. So I'll just kind of wrap up what I am prioritizing. So I do think that we need to really refocus some of our money, some of our planning, and some of our time on these parks. And a lot of that really comes down to how we can help staff, you know, get it done. That might mean equipment, that might mean more staff, that might mean a lot of different things. And so those are the kind of discussions that I want to have going forward. I think Rennie Field, as others have said, that is an absolute priority. For that side of town, it's needed. Turf fields are needed. We know that the spring sports, soccer, they need that. So I think getting that done. We know that we have a very strong pickleball community here, and I think the George Fox option, like I said earlier, I won't rehash it. That will also alleviate some of the issues with tennis, because right now, when there's pickleball tournaments, they close the tennis courts for the entire weekend, lock the gates. We got to go to Sherwood or to Charbonneau or whatever it might be. So it's been difficult for tennis players. Ewing Young, I think the parking lot and the bathrooms would be an absolute plus for Ewing Young. I think those are the most important things. Knowing that I used to use the dog park quite a bit, it gets very muddy, very dirty, potholes, and then especially in the summer, no bathrooms make the porta potties very difficult to use. Crystal Riley Park, that's kind of a, you know, it's out there, but it's, how many miles of trails is it? It's something like, isn't it like 15 miles of hiking trails up there? So we talk a lot about trails, and I'm telling you, that's one of the most beautiful trail systems I've been to in a very long time. So I think that when we talk trails, let's talk Crystal Riley and how we can really make that a premier hiking destination. The other thing that we haven't mentioned, Sanders Park, I totally agree. That comes back to the positive rapport with the constituents. If someone's giving us land and they're giving us money to develop it, I think it becomes even more important that we do something with it. It's trust with the community. And I think that goes back to, you know, if the city of Dundee has more requirements or there needs to be a discussion, let's really open the discussion with them. And then the one thing that we haven't mentioned is a paddle launch. That's something we had in the past that was just fantastic. I used it. I loved it. I know that's Bart's passion too. And I think it's something that, because we have that, that semi truck thing, we can actually probably set up a paddle launch relatively cheaply, if we can find the right spot. So I think that would be great as well. So I'm going to stop there and pass it on to Gail.
I would like to see our focus on current parks. And I do agree with everything you said, Ryan, about the amount of effort that the staff is putting into it. I would just not want you to have lack because we're pushing our funds elsewhere. Like I want spectacular parks, and then we take on more projects. That's what I want. And you have been doing a fantastic job with everything that you've been given. I would like to see fields for the kids, adequate fields for the kids. And I think I'm gonna just stop at those two big things rather than going on item by item, because everybody else said things that I fully agree with. That's what I would like with my two.
Okay. Thank you. Lisa.
So I think that, one of the things that we've been talking about all night is collaboration, and collaboration, whether that's with our other jurisdictions, whether that's with Jan Sanders, whether that's with community members that are going to sit there. And, we have a lot of community members that are already participating in our committees. We need to listen to them, but we need to be fair, and we need to make sure that we're addressing the needs of the entire community. I do think we're fortunate that we have all of the resources that we have here, and I do appreciate all the work to keep that up, because it isn't easy. Those programs in the parks, it's people use them all the time. But I want us to make sure that we continue in that collaboration, because as Jim says, you're utilizing the resources that you have available to you in a way that it brings the community in so they have more ownership, right? And so hopefully that I think has to be our primary focus in anything that we do. I think that if we're looking at the different parks and priorities, I would put Young up there as the number one, only because it's in a highly dense area that gets an incredible amount of use every single day. And that's on the dirt bike trail, it's on the skate park, it's at the dog park, everybody is there all the time. And they don't have a whole lot of other resources around there. So that bridge, and I know that we're waiting to see what happens in a year from now, and hopefully I really want us to start having those conversations with the county about what it is that we're talking about, and get that so that they'll be agreeable to building that bridge, so that we can expand the park to serve more of the people that are down in that area, because it is well used. I think that pickleball is a big deal. I think that there's so many people, so many community members that are using it. It's really good for an aging population, and we don't have a whole lot of resources for people that are older, other than if you're going to go to the cultural center or if you're going to play golf. But for activity, I think it's a really, really, really healthy thing for folks to have as an access, and doing that responsibly so that we don't have to shut it down. I think going through George Fox is the best way to do that. And then I think Sanders Park, because Dundee doesn't really have much. And Jan has done so much, and I would really like for us to work with the city of Dundee to get over those hurdles and see what we as a board can do, rather than leaving it all to the staff.
Yeah.
To make sure that we do that collaboration thing, so that we can get that Sanders Park moving. So we have a park right across the street from it, and it just would make it a really beautiful place for the folks in Dundee. Those are my priorities.
Okay. Well, staff or COG, do you guys have anything you'd like to kind of add?
I'll let them go before me.
Yeah.
I actually just want to say, right now, if you drive around Newburgh and the Newburgh-Dundee area, we have 1,400 kids right now that are participating in a youth sport, fall youth sport. And they are playing in the outfields of softball fields. So we have a soccer program that's gonna have 700 kids. We also have a flag football program, and we have tackle football. So if you get a chance, it would be a great, thing to do. You're gonna start seeing them everywhere. You'll see them at PCC, you'll see them at Darnell Wright, you'll see them at Jakewood, you'll see them at Rennie. They'll be all over. They'll be in Tongdale Park. And those kids are playing in the outfields, or in our parks, basically, or in the outfields of our softball fields. And I think those soccer players and those football players, they deserve a great place to play. It's been like that for a long time. We just kind of made do. The other thing about that is that those kids in the fall, as the weather gets poor, that's hard on those softball fields as well, right? And there isn't any activity in this community that brings in more revenue and to people that live in Newburgh than our competitive softball tournaments on the weekends. And they go from the first weekend of March till the end of October. And there are people coming into town, and also our local kids too, that are playing on our softball fields. And so those are used tremendously. And so those are in our parks, Jakewood particularly, right? So the other side of Jakewood, we have bathrooms there as well that are being used. But I just wanted to mention that, if you're out and about, make sure that you notice that. And I think that for that reason, I think Rennie would be an amazing opportunity for us and for our kids.
So Julie, is there anything that you need from us? Is there anything you'd like to see seriously, I wanna know, what would you like to see from
Yeah.
from the
Yeah,
board?
turf fields. So, I know that Jim had mentioned too, maybe even Lisa had mentioned something about grass fields. Well, I do think that they've been tremendous for us. It rains a lot here. And so we would be able to play so many more softball games, but also soccer games. There are times when we have to cancel them. And as those fields are played on, and when the weather gets poor, sometimes, Jim, you know this, those fields, they smell rotten. They don't smell good. And it's just because we live in Oregon. So if we had more fields for our kids to play on, I think that'd be tremendous. We have become the destination for youth softball. Everybody, you talk to anybody that plays competitively. We have people coming from all around. We host 3 weeks of summer nationals. We have teams coming from all over the United States to play here, and they use our restaurants. They shop at Fred Meyer's. They eat at Subway. And so for that reason, it really has put us on the map in terms, when you say youth softball, we are really known for that. And so it's just fields. I'd love to see it. We offer if you go out to Newburgh High School on a Saturday morning, beginning now until like the end of October, we will have from 9 to 10, we will have little Big Kicks soccer. So those are 4-year-olds that are out there. They get off the field a half an hour later. We have 2 straight hours of flag football out there. We run 4 games concurrently at a time on the Newburgh High School turf field. And then right after that, we start tackle, and they play from 1 o'clock until 9:30 at night. We're able to really partner we have a great relationship with the Newburgh School District, so they allow us to use their turf fields on Saturday mornings exclusively. Man, it is great. It's so cool to go out there and see all those kids and all those families and parents participating. And I love driving. I spend all weekend out there just because it's fun. And I love to see all that healthy activity. And so if we could do more of that, that would be fantastic.
Thank
Can I say something real fast?
Yeah.
I'm a numbers person, and that 1,400 kids using our parks, our current population is 25,477. That is nearly 5.5% of our population using our parks for just sports.
That's just in the fall,
And that, yeah,
you know?
and then you take that with parents going there too, that's easily 10+%. That's impressive. Sorry.
Anything else staff would like to share, and then we'll pass it to COG to kind of wrap things up.
The only thing I'll share with the board is City of Newburgh, Yamhill County, City of Dundee, we've all done surveys over the years. Out of all the government agencies, we've fared much better with the public. We're talking about a high percentage point. Maybe I've been here too long, 30-some years, but I remember when I got here, we did not have one single field. Not one. We played over at Rennie Field. That's the only field that we had. It has grown tremendously, and it's grown because of the cooperation and because people care. And again, the staff, over the years, we've changed, but they've been as dedicated as you could ask for. We've had actually no problems. We've worked together. We haven't agreed, but we've worked together for the betterment of the community. The idea is community. Special interest groups will be here till the end of time. They will deal with you, the board. What you have to do is look at these special interest groups and decide what is the minimum and what should we do and not do. They won't go away. They'll be here. But how we deal with them. In the past, I can tell this board, the board members have always referred the special interest groups to the staff to deal with. I can tell you now, if you try to deal with them without the staff, you're going to have trouble. I've seen it all my life. We want the same things you want.
Can you give us an example of a special interest group?
Pickleball is a special interest group. The golf course is a special interest group. The equestrians are a special interest group. They're all special interest groups. They're after their area. We have wide spectrum. For instance, there's wants in the community. There's also needs. What does the community need? That would be the first question. The second question is, what do they want? And if you say, okay, we're not going to address your wants, we're only going to give you what you need, you'll fail. You have to learn how to combine those needs and wants and set some priorities by which to do that. That takes time, takes study, and it does take time. In business, time is money. In government, time is called collaboration. It's two different things. They want it tomorrow. And things just don't happen that fast because it does take collaboration, a little bit of study and a little bit of time. But that's another whole story.
Okay,
All right.
why don't you bring us home?
All right, so we've taken in a lot of information. I think this ending was good. I think it's good for everyone to get that and list that. The next objective I would have would be to meet and collaborate all the information together so that what you have is good stuff. I think I would like to talk to the staff, make sure I understand all the pieces, what who does what, how all this stuff kind of gets put together in a format that the board can chew on. And then I think you get back together again and chew on it and how you want to prioritize and get these things done. I heard a lot more commonality. I also heard, how can we as a board sit down with maybe some of these other political bodies based upon what we need and maybe move the goalpost a bit?
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing. So how can we do that and move things in a way that works, and then prioritize the resources that you folks need to maintain and push forward? And like you said, I hope this was helpful to hear status, grants, leveraging dollars, timelines, and who's in control of some of this time, on your hands and some of the money. I hope that's of a help to you folks. But then we would get back together again. We go through this list and we prioritize it and give some focus to that. That would help you. You've already reaffirmed your mission and your goals. With this, that helps staff then maintain the budget year and the projects, and also helps guide into the next phase, which is your next year's budget. Before you know it, you're sitting at budget again. I mean, you just turn around, you're right back at budget again. So, getting this done in a timely fashion, so you guys can work through the fall and get some of these priorities. But I did take, one big takeaway I heard was, how can we have enough information and understanding to do the collaborative things you need the board to do that can push the, get it moving on your behalf.
Okay, good stuff. So you follow up with staff, and then we'll hear from staff
Yep.
when
And we'll
that's
get back.
done, and we'll work together on doing another one of
That's
these
okay.
type sessions,
We'll do it
maybe in
again.
a couple months or so. Okay, with that, I think we can adjourn. Okay.